Good evening. Welcome to the Oxford Public Schools School Committee meeting of Monday, June 14th, 2021, in the Oxford High School Community Room. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, MGL, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's order concerning imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, meetings in the town of Oxford will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. We will strive to provide access to such meetings via a link or a number to call in or other similar option. In the event we are unable to accommodate same despite best efforts, we will post recorded sessions of the meeting as soon as possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings. Please note, this will be the last remote meeting until further notice. Those wishing to participate, you can find all the necessary information on the oxps.org website. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first order of business is the reorganization of the school committee, which is going to require a vote. We need a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. Are there any motions to appoint any of those positions?
As the chair of the school committee.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's 5-0. Thank you very much, members. I really am honored, and I appreciate your confidence in me, so thank you. Do we have a nomination for a vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Burke for vice chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke? Oh, you can vote for yourself. All right, he abstains. I vote yes, 4 yes, 1 abstention. Congratulations, Mr. Burke. And do we have a nomination for a secretary?
Anybody want to do this?
I'd be happy to do it again.
I'll nominate Palmina Griffin.
I'll second that
All right,
nomination.
we have a motion and a second to nominate Palmina Griffin. Is there any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin?
Abstain too.
Okay, Mr. Burke?
Yes.
I'm a yes, 4 yes, 1 abstention. Congratulations and thank you, Mrs. Griffin. That takes care of the reorganization of the school committee. So at this time, we have student representative report from Miss Molly Raymond. Hi, Molly.
Hi. As we know, it's the last week of school. At the high school, students are finishing their finals this week. Class elections for class office will be taking place Wednesday afternoon for the upcoming school year. The rising 8th graders will have their elections when they return to school in fall. Our varsity baseball team has a big game tomorrow versus Tingsboro and Hudson for the Central Mass Finals at 3:30. The other sports seasons are just wrapping up this week, and I hope you all have a great summer.
Thank you very much, Molly. Any questions from the committee or comments for Ms. Raymond?
Nope, thanks and welcome again. Glad to have you.
Okay. All right, the special presentation time. At this time, we'd like to recognize the 2020-2021 retirees. We do have 4 members of the Oxford Public Schools who have already retired, so we will recognize them. Lane Msba, school nurse, was 19 years in the district. She has retired. She retired in August. Carol Davis, first grade teacher at Chafee, 37 years in the district. She retired in December. Nada Lepore, the budget specialist from central office, she retired in December as well after 21 years in the district. And Janice Burcell, instructional aide. She retired in December as well, aide at the high school. She was in the district for 31 years. So thank you to the four of you and congratulations. Hopefully you are well into your months of retirement and enjoying all of that. So we do have four other Oxford Public School employees that we'd like to recognize tonight. I believe we have a few in attendance, so we'll start with the two that are here. Candace LaRange, foreign language teacher from the high school, has had 22 years in the district. The school committee does have a gift that we are going to recognize you with. We just don't physically have it, so the principal of your building will give that to you. But do you want to say a few words? You want to come forward, or? Okay. All right. That's okay. You don't have to. I know there's.
De nada.
De nada. Patricia Spitz, instructional aide, has been in the district for 28 years, an aide from the high school. She's also retiring at the end of the school year. Would you like to come up, Patty, and say a few words? Okay. All right. So the two of you are in attendance. I'd like to give a round of applause. We will make sure that Mr. Nugent gets you your recognition gift from the school committee. We'd also like to recognize Miss Deborah Allen, special ed teacher, who was at Project Coffee for years and also at the high school. She was in the district for 32 years. So congratulations. I know I worked with Debbie, and she's an amazing educator. And finally, Lynn Thornton, adjustment counselor from Barton Elementary, has been in the district for 21 years. She will be retiring as well at the end of the year. So thank you, Lynn, and congratulations. So in total, the 8 retirees had a combined 211 years of service in the Oxford Public Schools. So one last round of applause. Thank you very, very much for all your years of service. So next order of business is to approve the minutes from May 24th. I would like to make a note that there is, Miss Molly Cook was left off of the members present. So we could make a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment that that will be added. Is there any discussion on the minutes? And if somebody's going to make a motion, if they could add that in.
I'll make the motion to approve with the change adding Molly.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay, Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, 4 yes, 1 abstention. Okay, recommended business. All right, so new business. The appointment of the superintendent of schools. So I see Mr. Lucas is with us in the audience. Him and I have been doing a lot of talking lately, and we have come to an agreement. We have signed a contract, so we do need a motion to appoint him as the next superintendent of the Oxford Public Schools, effective July 1, 2021.
I'd like to make that motion.
And I will second that motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the floor? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, 5 yes, 0 no's. Congratulations, Mr. Lucas. Welcome to the district. Okay. Subcommittees, study groups, district town staff. Is there any, I don't think we have any reports from our subcommittees at this point. So let's move to the business office. Mr. Ledoux, do you want to come up and walk us through your part of this agenda, please? Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Chairman Canicchioli, members of the committee. The first item I have for you, and my apologies, I'm going to go fairly quickly, but this is important business here. The first item I have for you is authorization for the superintendent to submit a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. As you may or may not be aware, last year we did submit to MSBA for Oxford Middle School. Oxford Middle School is in need of extensive building improvements. Just to name a few items, ADA improvements. The bathrooms are in pretty rough shape, meaning walls, plumbing, hardware. We have one last boiler. We've been slowly chipping away at the boilers. Those are mission critical, but we do have one last boiler to replace. The flooring throughout the entire building could use some help. And additionally, another item that has come to light this year is just repurposing of the space in the building. There's a lot of unused space in that building that could be better utilized, such as the old wood shop, and I think the way Dr. Nash puts it, it's a traditional 60s high school, which may not be appropriate for middle schoolers of today. So just to dig right into it, I believe we're out of 76 school districts this past year. Please correct me if I'm wrong. We were very close to being selected to receive funding through Massachusetts School Building Authority. The reason why we had started this was we had submitted a laundry list of capital items that needed to be addressed at that school, millions of dollars worth of requests. We were told to go explore maybe go into MSBA to pick up a portion of this. We were very close last year, and we were encouraged to reapply. The difference with this year is instead of a priority 5, which would be the replacement, renovation, and modernization of a school facility, it's really facility driven. We've changed it from priority 5 to priority 7, which is the replacement or addition to an obsolete building in order to provide a full range of programs consistent with state and local requirements. So we've changed it. It's changed from a more facilities driven request to a more of a programmatic request. I'll put it that way. On the second page of the memo, now please bear with me, as this is a very lengthy motion for the committee, so my apologies. I don't make this up. But this is what we're required to bring forward. So on the second page, you'll see it titled "Motion and Vote for MSBA Statement of Interest for Oxford Middle School." Just to provide the committee with a little bit more information, we have also requested the Board of Selectmen, as we need their vote as well, to authorize the superintendent to submit this. So I believe that should be on their meeting for tomorrow evening. However, this is the school committee's vote. We do need this. I think June 25th is the cutoff, so that's why we're coming before you tonight in the Board of Selectmen tomorrow evening, so we can get this in for the 25th. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board? Yes, Mrs. Forbes?
So just clarify for me the difference between priority 5 and priority 7. When you say replacement or addition versus updating or renovating. Can you be any more specific on that?
Yeah. So the prior one, priority 5, is replacement, renovation, modernization of a school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation, and to increase energy conservation and decrease energy costs.
Okay.
That's the wording taken straight from.
That's perfect.
And then priority 7 is the replacement or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide a full range of programs consistent with state and local requirements.
Gotcha. I get it. Thank you.
Just, if I might clarify, there were approximately 70 school districts that initially made the first cut. That was narrowed down to 30 when we received our call, I think in midwinter. Then that was narrowed down to 15. It's my understanding they only awarded 3 this year, which is really not typical to what MSBA has awarded in the past. one of the things that became pretty evident to us in our conversations with MSBA, both in January and also again later on in the spring, was that we needed to branch out and really look at the building, not just from the aspect of facilities, but programmatically, does it meet the needs of middle school students? And certainly, I think that's what Justin has alluded to. And in our conversations with MSBA, they understood that as we began to talk about that. Because you made it to the finalist round does not guarantee you anything, because it's fresh all over again every year. You don't know who else will be out there with needs equal to yours or even more pressing. So we're here, as you requested, to resubmit.
Any other questions from the board?
I was just going to offer to read. Do you need somebody to read this as a motion? The whole
We do.
thing?
My apologies.
Yeah,
It's very
but just before you read it, though, I do have a couple of questions. So, thank you for your questions, September, because that was one thing I wanted to ask. So, from 5 to 7, I think I heard you say it's recommended by MSBA, correct? Did they recommend we do that?
The priorities,
Yeah, changing from priority 5 to 7?
they don't normally make that recommendation, just based on our conversations with, the needs of the building. That's why it changed from 5 to 7.
So, obsolete, right? I mean, it could be interpreted probably a couple different ways.
Mhm.
So, how, do you have to prove that the building is, out of date, essentially? And how do you prove that? And,
MSBA will come in.
okay.
If you make it to that round, they make that determination based on a more thorough investigation or review. Both from a structural perspective, they will come in and look at that to see whether it is cost efficient for them to renovate the building. And based on the fact that programmatically you may want to reutilize, repurpose space, they'll look at that. They'll look at all of that area to see how is it more cost effective for us to just build a new school or to repurpose the space for you? And is the building itself structurally sound enough? Given the fact that you did do some renovation projects under their umbrella, I think in 2014. So that's, i.e., could be a renovation project as a result.
Okay. All right, yeah, thank you. Can the vice chair read the, all right, there is one change, but I appreciate you offering to read it. That's the accurate one. So the one I just
The
gave you,
verb
you can read
change,
that
that's
one.
it.
Yeah, it was just, yeah.
So, having convened in an open meeting on Monday, June 14th, 2021, prior to the Statement of Interest submission closing date, the school committee of the town of Oxford, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the interim superintendent of schools to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the Statement of Interest form dated June 9th, 2021 for the Oxford Middle School, located at 497 Main Street, Oxford, Massachusetts, which describes and explains the following deficiencies in the priority category for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. I'm only halfway there. Under priority number 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. The building opened in the 1960s as a high school, but the overall building footprint, including but not limited to classroom spaces and configuration, science labs, locker rooms, and breakout rooms, does not support a 21st century learning model for a middle school with respect to student-centered learning, social emotional well-being, student engagement, teacher teaming, collaborative hands-on learning, and active instruction. We hereby further specifically acknowledge that by submitting this Statement of Interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the Town of Oxford Public School District to filing an application for funding within the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
I second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we will call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, 5 yes, 0 no's. It passes. And so on to the FREC bids. Mr. Ledoux, is that where you're next?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. The next item I have for the committee is put together a listing of the vendors that have provided the lowest bid in the following categories. Let me back up a little bit. So we go with French River Educational Center in North Oxford. They do a cooperative bid for us every year to procure our school supplies and athletic supplies, custodial, you name it. We just received the bid results last Wednesday. So just to give you a heads up, I will be coming back because they have not awarded they awarded the food service items, but that wasn't until Friday, so we missed the agenda, so I'm gonna have to get on the next meeting for that. But so we can get our year-end orders in for next year, I request that the committee vote to award the bids as in accordance with the annual cooperative bidding process for athletic supplies, school supplies, custodial supplies, computer, and copy paper. In prior years, I did provide a full listing of the full bid. This year, in order to save some trees, I didn't give the full 100-plus page document. However, I do have a copy of it if anybody would like to see it.
Just send it to us.
Certainly, I can send it to the whole committee. So I will send you what who the lowest bidder was, what the price was that they submitted, and go from there. So I request that you take the vote to award this. I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
So before we make a motion to approve, is there any questions from the board?
I guess one question I have is there any substantial increases? I mean, we're hearing that everything's going up. So did you see that reflected in what we got for bid?
Nothing that has caught my attention so far. Now, I haven't gone through this with a fine-tooth comb and compared year to year. However, but there was nothing that was significant, put it that way.
It's a good question. Thank you, Cal. Yeah, really good question. Anything else from the board? All right, so we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the list as presented without the food service, though.
All right, we have a motion, and we have a second.
I second the motion.
Motion and second. Discussion? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
I'm a yes, 5 yes, 0 no's.
Thank you very much. Just quickly, the last item that I had received is French River had requested last week to offer PD classes at the high school. It sounds very self-serving when I say it that way. They had requested to utilize the building to offer classes. Now, as being part of a member of French River, our teachers get a discount if they want to take any of these classes. I guess the point being is they had requested to use the building. Now, the committee had said, no building use or facility rentals till after 7/1. And speaking with them, I said, well, geez, it's really short notice and we can't really rent the building till after 7/1. However, I will approach the committee and ask for a special permission to see if it'd be okay if they offered these master's classes in the library at the high school. So they're looking to utilize the library in the high school starting the 21st, so next Monday, through July 2nd. So again, I told them I would bring it to the committee to see if they would entertain it. I do realize it does create some issues when you tell one group no, but given the circumstance that, when they had requested a few months ago, another group, COVID was alive and well. I think things have kind of settled since then. So again, that's the reasoning for bringing it before you.
Questions? Yes, Mrs. Forbes.
How many people roughly in attendance?
20.
Okay. And I do see that, that looks like a conflict, but truly it's a different circumstance, outdoor versus indoor. So, the conflict is totally different. I don't really see it to be a problem.
Mrs. Griffin.
Are we going to be needing that space for summer school programs or any other programs for our students
No.
at that time?
No, this has already gone before the building principal who said it's okay to utilize that space.
Mr. Burke.
I guess my only question, for the committee, since we voted not to allow outside groups in until July, and we're going to allow this group in prior to July, should we make a motion to rescind our previous vote or change that policy so that when other groups ask, we're not in a tough spot to say, well, we let one in and we're not letting others in?
Yes, Mrs. Forbes.
Just in response to that, outside groups, they're sort of an inside group where our staff are a part of that. So I don't know that they're truly an outside group. We have this alliance with FREC and have for many, many years. I kind of feel like they're a part of us, where the other organization or dance companies or whatever, I think, are truly outside and, out of our realm. But I don't know that we want to rescind that. With dance season upon us and all of that. I mean, I guess it's going on now. More so, July 1 is kind of around the corner. This is a week or so early and kind of our people anyway. I would like to make a motion to allow FREC to use the library from June 21st to July 2nd.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, Mrs. Griffin.
I'm just assuming that FREC would, I think in the past, they haven't paid dues or I mean, they give us like classes and perks and whatnot. But would they be covering, like the janitor, would they be covering some costs for cleaning in this type of a circumstance because it's kind of extenuating?
At this point, I haven't worked that out with them. Normally, we do not charge them a building rental fee. However, I am aware of some scheduling conflicts over the next 2 weeks as some people are taking vacations and they want to use the building till 3:30 in the afternoon. There might not be staff here, so I may have to bill them for custodial coverage to lock up the building afterwards. But I have not crossed that bridge yet. I didn't want to have that conversation until the committee said yes or no.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Only because we know, if we're going to be putting our, using our resources and whatnot, I know normally we, let them have the space because they are in town.
Normally, again, just due to scheduling conflicts, there may be a few hours that they might need to cover for a custodian.
So that's just one thing that I would like us to consider as a committee, if that's reasonable.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
So I guess I'd
So
like
we have
to
a
amend.
motion and a second on the floor, so you're going to amend the motion?
I would like to amend my motion to say that yes, we would allow them to use it. However, they would cover any cost for additional time, staffing, or cleaning that needs to be done.
So can we do that, Helen, without,
Yes, as long as Ms. Burke will second.
or Ms. Cook?
Cook.
Yeah, I second.
All right, so we have a new motion that has been put forth and seconded. Any discussion on that new motion? Seeing and hearing none, call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
I'm a yes, 5 affirmative, 0 no's. That passes.
That's all I have for this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much, Mr.
Justin.
Ledoux. Superintendent of Schools, are you doing the Esports at OMS?
I am.
Okay,
I
so turn it over to Dr. Nash.
Thank you. You have in your packet this evening a side letter of agreement regarding a middle school stipend position, robotics/esports. The OEA president and I met on this. The request is that we exchange, if you will, trade in, if you will, one of the two robotics positions at the middle school for 1 year, for the next school year, for an esports advisor position. The stipend would remain the same. This needs your approval as it is part of the collective bargaining agreement.
Well, before there's a motion, any questions? Dr. Nash, yes, Mrs. Forbes?
What is an esports
Yeah,
advisor?
I'm glad you asked. I was
just gonna ask the same thing, like, anybody?
Miss Belhumeur.
All right.
Could you just come all the way up, Ms. Belhumeur, and sit at the table? Thank you.
Esports.
Mr. Lavelle last year started in esports. It's almost, he probably could explain this better. I'm not very good with this, but it's like a video game, but it's more of educational video games, and they play against other teams in the other country. We're one of the only middle schools that has an esports team. So he started it last year, and Ms. Niskern advised it for free all year long, and we don't need 2 robotics advisors. We could barely find one last year that we ran robotics, so we figured if we traded one in, then we could run both teams next year with a paid advisor. So, but the kids do most of it during school last year, during lunches and stuff like that, and it's a cool thing. Again, he could probably send you guys an email and explain it a little bit better than I can, but
So is this the e-soccer that the high school played, same kind of thing?
Maybe.
Looks like a video game, but they're playing
Yeah.
against
Yeah,
other
it's
teams.
all-
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
I
it's
just
like
wanted to be
sports,
sure.
it's like a, it's,
Gotcha.
yeah.
It's online
It's
soccer
online
team or
soccer or sports
whatever
or
you're
gaming
doing. Right.
type thing, but it's more of an
Okay.
educational base, and they play against
Not
other.
online betting, though.
No.
No.
All right.
That's
Yeah, we're one of the only middle schools that has a team.
Oh, I see Cadian's got his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Phillips.
There he is.
If you could come all the way up, Mr. Phillips, that'd be great. Thank you.
Bring his own chair.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so as Amy mentioned, it's basically just video games that the kids play. They set up different tournaments. So it's similar to what the kids play at home too. They do different challenges. They have to play as a team. So we actually have some computers set up for them with headsets and everything. So it's a really good team building stuff. And talking to Mike, I know one thing is some kids who don't really have, say, like your traditional athletics, they've been drawn to that for coming to school. So it's been a big hit.
Yeah, they
So
really
that's
like it.
done in the school?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's
okay.
like after school.
After
We
school.
do it during lunches
Okay.
or after school.
Gotcha.
Ms. Nisfarm is using part of her prep period last year, once a week to run it as well. So it's done within the confines of school and after school.
So as you know, like probably from your kids too, like Fortnite and all those other games, similar concept there. So it's where the kids are, can compete for international competition eventually when you get to that level. So it's really taking off across the state and across the country right now. So
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
completely,
Yes.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah, and we have a
There
lot
you
of kids
go.
interested in it. So
Yeah, I think
it's
Becker,
pretty cool.
Becker was doing something, I
Yes.
think. in
Yeah.
Worcester.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
well. No, I think
So-
that's awesome. I
And I
mean,
give
that's
all the
really a
credit to
cool
Mr. Lavelle
opportunity.
and Cadian, because they're the ones that.
It's a great,
pretty
great
much-
opportunity
I'm
for
not a
kids.
video game person, but he was all
Controlled
for it.
competition,
Right.
supervised,
Yeah.
Right.
to
And they have to,
compete.
just like any
Good.
other club or sport, they have to keep their grades up to be on it, just like any other team,
Yeah.
sports team that we have.
And it's collaborative too. The kids are all definitely working together.
Yeah.
They're throughout the entire thing. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Any other questions or comments? All right, was there a motion on the floor yet or no? Okay, we need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept this change to the stipend positions.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing and hearing none, call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
I'm a yes, 5 affirmative, no zeros, no nos. All right, Dr. Nash, you are still up. The District Learning Recovery and Acceleration Plan Proposal.
So exciting.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. So I know that the committee received online their school committee packet, and this was part of it, and rather difficult, I'm sure, to go through. So this evening, you have a hard copy. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of what our proposal is, I'd like to go through the major components of the plan and the introduction a little bit, and then turn it over to the building principals and the other central office administrators to specifically talk to you about their proposal. First and foremost, let me say that this started out as a recovery plan, because at the time that we were talking about this, we were really focusing in on approximately $1.4 million, a little under that, which was part of ESER 2. Easy to spend that money, although it may seem like a lot, easy to spend that money. But then, shortly after that time, as you are aware, our plan really morphed and became not just a recovery plan, a plan to rebound, but it also took on another life of its own, if you will, and became a plan for us to accelerate learning, because it is a 2-year plan that anticipates spending over $4.4 million in the next 2 years and hiring over 35 positions to not just help students rebound, particularly in the areas of English language arts and mathematics, but also has the potential, as you will hear this evening, to really accelerate learning based on some of the recommendations that come forward. So quickly going through the tabs, I'm going to talk with you a little bit about the introduction to give you some background in a minute, but then you will see that each of the proposals is broken up into the schools. I'll talk about the district-wide proposals. Dr. Henrichon will share the student services proposals. Katie and Phillips, our Director of Technology, will present the technology. In tab 9, which is kind of the quick and dirty way to look at this, it's a summary of the estimate of the cost of the plan, but it also summarizes all of the positions, all of the instructional resources, and other additional support staff needs that we are recommending. That's in tab 9. In tab 10, we've included for you job descriptions. Some of these are draft job descriptions, so when we talk about a technology integration specialist, you can look at a job description for that position. When we talk about the pre-K-12 coordinator of health and wellness services, you can review that job description. When we talk about the middle school math interventionist, again, we have a draft of that job description, as well as the reading specialist. Also included is the existing teacher assistant job description. So you have those in front of you, so if you have any questions as to what the duties are, you'll see those there. Also in tab 11, I wanted to include for you a question that probably will arise about assessment. So we've included an updated version of our K-12 continuum of assessments that we use and that our administrators will be using as they begin to determine what students need intervention services particularly. In addition to that, the more definitive information on ESER 2 funding and ESER 3 funding, so you have that if you want to peruse that at your leisure. And then 2 articles, one of which you'll hear, I'm sure, the elementary principals refer to, the famous and watershed Tennessee study of elementary class size reduction and the lasting benefit study that went along with that, as well as the NWEA article that I alluded to at one of our earlier school committee meetings regarding the study that anticipates what recovery might look like in the areas of ELA and mathematics for certain grade levels. And also, you have the early summer program parent survey results. We'll be coming back to you on the 28th with our proposals for summer programs, the principals at each of the buildings. But I wanted you to see what parents are saying with respect to what types of programs they may be interested in. So we'll be working on that tomorrow and next week. So I'm going to just...
Dr. Nash, before you start, would
Sure.
you prefer the committee just to kind of let each tab kind of do its thing and then ask questions at the end, or should the
You may...
members... No, well, I'm saying, when you do your thing, should we just hold questions, or should we...
You can ask me any questions when I'm done with the introduction, and then
And then we'll
as
just
each
do-
of the
So-
building principals and the district administrators present, you may have questions at the end.
So
that
to
you
the
may
committee
wanna
members,
ask.
when we're hearing the presentation from each, just jot down your questions, and then we'll do questions at the end of each little mini presentation. That might make most sense to keep it on. Okay,
Sure.
thank you, Dr. Nash.
I tried to summarize for you in the introduction some of the key bullets of what we hope this plan could achieve and what potential it may have with respect to both rebounding, recovery, and acceleration. But just so that the audience is aware, this is a 2-year plan. So it is more than, as I said, a recovery plan. It is a 2-year plan that looks to spend over the next 2 years $4.481,412. That's what we've been allotted in our district. And as you know, this allotment is based on our Title I population. This is federal monies. So there are restrictions for that. They are not very limiting. And certainly, there are no restrictions that I have read that would prohibit us from doing anything in this proposal. Most of our funding in our proposal includes adding positions. Very little of it includes doing any types of work to our buildings. So we have really had the challenge over the last 2.5, 3 months now to develop really a comprehensive plan more than what was in our minds back in February to bring forward. It did not come, and it does not come without obstacles. You'll hear right away this evening about one of our obstacles. There's always bad with the good, but I think every single decision and every single meeting that I had with any of the administrative team, our job was really to think about what was best for students. And while it certainly may create some issues and challenges, we think that we have tried to address all of those. It includes conversations with the OEA president. I have met and shared this plan with her. It includes our incoming superintendent of schools, Mr. Lucas, who was able to attend our meeting last week with the entire administrative team, our EAC meeting. We shared the plan with him. He provided some feedback, so he is on board with this plan, has endorsed this plan. The building administrators at their faculty meetings last Tuesday also shared the plan with their staff, and along the way, as we were developing the plan, certainly, they were meeting with department heads, lead teachers, and other staff, certainly, to get their feedback on the plan. It is a challenge, and it will be a challenge, but I think one of the things that the plan has a byproduct that it did was it also addressed some of the personnel requests that were in the FY22 budget. Specifically, the foreign language teachers are in this plan, coming from the middle school and high school principal. You recall last December, both of them had requested that. We were not able to fill that, but this plan addresses that. And when I talk about accelerating learning, that's a piece of this that I think is very important to recognize. The technology integration specialist, which again was in our FY22 budget, a position that we know can accelerate learning, is addressed in this also. And also 2 of the elementary reading specialists that we talked about and that we were unable to address, but we had hoped at that time we would be able to address in ESER 2 money, not ever thinking that we would get much more than that. So that's incorporated in this plan, as well as a middle school reading specialist. So it has a lot of advantages. However, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that one of the last things I say in the introduction prior to talking about the potential points that it can do to accelerate and to recover is that I think it might be a sense that the committee may need to revisit its calendar for next year. All things are kind of converging. We have resources, both in funding available as well as staff, and we're hiring a curriculum director. And at the point that we developed the calendar, we were looking at really what was, and now this is at a very different point. So it might be something for the committee to consider in adding some half days next year, knowing that with all of the new work that will be going on, with the ability to really differentiate and personalize learning, with the new ELA curriculum, and with a curriculum director who will develop a professional development plan and work with staff on intervention strategies and resources that we have identified in this particular proposal, it might be advantageous. I would leave you with that and say it might be advantageous to do that. I won't read all of the bullets with respect to what this plan can do. I think it's a good summary, and I think I'll just turn it over to the first 2 principals who are really a tandem.
Can we just open it up to a couple questions from
Sure.
your part? Any questions from the board on the introduction part? I do have a couple, Dr. Nash. You talk about in paragraph 3 in the first page, the town manager and the finance director to consider unexpected benefit costs
Sure.
to the town and have accounted for the unplanned impact and the planned costs. How has that been accounted for?
If you look at the end of the proposal, you'll see about $872,000. So prior to our initial discussion, when we recognized that we were going to have more than 1.4 million, and we saw that that money was going to be 2.5 times that, we saw that part of what we were going to do is to hire additional staff. And I knew that the impact of that certainly It was something that needed to be discussed with the town manager and the director of finance. So our business administrator and I, Justin Ledoux, met with them to simply ask them, were they prepared for the impact? I think we knew what the answer was with respect to health insurance benefits. They do not have that in the budget. So this plan takes into account, working off of their numbers, their percentages, what the potential impact might be for health insurance benefits. And then, of course, it has to incorporate MTRS for those staff members who would fall under MTRS. So that's an approximate figure, 872,000. It could be a little bit higher than that.
And is that including, so could you just?
That's health insurance eligibility and
being
benefits.
paid from what's funding source?
From this
I
grant.
know, I'm trying to, from the grant.
Yes,
So
yes, the grant allows that,
872,
right.
It allows for the
Yes, it
benefits?
does, yep.
Okay, great. Second question I had, and forgive me for asking this one, but the last paragraph, if fully implemented. So what is your vision and the team's vision of what's fully implemented mean? If we can get 80% of this plan, is that fully implemented, or is it 100% of the plan? Like, what is the if part? Could you describe that to the committee?
Sure. The if part for me is if we can get all these staff, get quality staff hired.
So if fully implemented means
100%.
100%, and what if we don't
We-
get 100%?
Well, then I think that depending on what the positions are, you're going to see some impact.
Okay.
Part of the plan, it calls for flooding the classrooms at the elementary level, not just having small class size, but having additional sped teachers and consulting teacher of reading, as well as TAs. So if you don't hire, not able to hire them and start the year, then potentially the impact is going to be less.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Anything else from the committee on the opening part? All right, Dr. Nash?
So just, you're not seeing double when you see Chafee and Barton together, because they really are a tag team and they're coming up that way, I suspect. So we'll probably need another chair. So you're going to see that this is a plan that really was developed over a number of months, back and forth between both principals. I really have to commend the fact that they didn't work in isolation. This is really the best plan that one could come up with respect to how it impacts students and how it will impact students for the next 2 years, which is really what I'm excited about. Okay.
Awesome. I'm not usually nervous, but the plan tonight is so important to the next phases of the Oxford Public Schools that I want to make sure we get everything right and answer your questions. So I've had 25 plus years in education. I've never been so excited in the month of June to finish up a year to prepare for the next year. If, again, it's an if, but just an excitement. So if you've been wondering where the principals have been for the last couple of months, it's been planning for this night. So the plan we're looking at tonight is proposing about $1.6 million directly to the elementary schools. That's about 37% of all ESSER monies. And that shows a strong commitment that the Oxford Public Schools is looking to make to the elementary school. And if it's okay, I think it's, we'll just jump into what Dr. Nash kind of touched on, the nuts and bolts, the tab 9, if you will, because we sort of live off tab 9. It's where things really get interesting. And so I'll start with the fact that obviously there's some assumptions, like Dr. Nash said, if when you make some decisions here, they're going to have an impact. And the impact of doing our ESSER plan, our recovery, and more importantly, I think it's an acceleration plan, is that we will be asking to reduce class sizes at the elementary school from kindergarten to 4th grade to the numbers of 15 or below, given our projected numbers. And in order to do that, cool.
Actually,
in order to do that,
could you just
Yep.
press the pause button? So you've asked us to go to tab 9. So what are we looking at here on tab 9?
well, for us to Chafee, if you go to tab 9, if you start at Chafee, I think that's where we're going to talk about a lot, so we're going to go through it. If you say, I'm sorry, I guess page 2 of tab 9 would be?
Oh,
Does
there
that
we
make
go.
sense? That's where
Okay,
top of it.
I got you.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. That
All right.
says Chafee there. And so we'll start with that. And like Dr. Nash was saying, it has a ripple effect, and a major change would be that if we're going to flood the classrooms and reduce class sizes, we need to create more classrooms. And the way to make that happen is we have to make a major shift and remove the preschool, 2 preschool classes at Chafee to another school, and bring the grade, in order for it to work for John, and you'll see there's maps included as well, bring the grade 2 back to Chafee, where they just moved away from since I got here 4 years ago. I believe they were packing up the year I came. So, and so but again, we think the squeeze is worth the juice on this one, and we're asking for that to be considered. So you'll see that I'm asking for, 2 classroom teachers at the K level, which would bring me to 7. I'm gonna keep the same 5 in grade 1 because my class sizes, we've got that real interesting current grade K going to 1, that's 70 students. And then my grade 2, if it were to go through, I'd become the grade 2 owner, and we'd ask for a total of 2 more there, so we'd go to a total of 7 at grade 2. I'm good there for now. I'll keep going. I just want to, and then I'm asking, because every grade level in the district has a special educator attached to it in this district, from grades 1 all the way up to 12, at least one. We haven't had that in Chafee for a year, and it's really, we're feeling some of the effects, and we're really hoping we can do some preventive maintenance and catch kids in their literacy skills at an earlier level. And with the supports of a certified special educator, as well as small class sizes, we believe strongly that we'll see some of that. We'll reap the rewards of that. Again, as there's 3 educators here, one who just finished up in education, one who's early ed specialist. So you guys get it. When you create these things, you have contracts to abide by, and so you need some specialist support to cover classes so they have their 45-minute per day prep period. So it was John who came up with the idea, and I'll let him speak to it, of an additional phys ed teacher, because you probably were looking at it going, what are these guys, nuts? It really, I think it speaks to why, and I'll hand that over to you.
Sure.
You ready?
No problem. Thank you. As you can see, the Barton and Chafee requests are the same. As Dr. Nash said, it's not, it's repeated because we're both asking for 2 additional classroom teachers at every grade level except for grade 1. When we went back, we were actually talking about, we started with 1, and then, over the length of the conversation, Dr. Nash talked a lot about class size, and you can see if we were to add the 2 classroom teachers at each grade level, it would get class sizes down to 15 students with the current numbers that we have and anticipate for next year. But also adding teachers, as Rob just said, requires adding contractual prep time for the classroom teachers. And how do we do that? If the plan were to move forward and you looked at Barton, we would have 8 sections of 3rd grade and 7 sections of 4th grade. So how do you get all those people their prep time in one day? So we talked a lot about adding a specialist, another special, if you will, and we didn't come up with phys ed just by throwing it against the wall. We talked about a STEM teacher, health. It really went around, but then we figured, this hopefully can work in a couple of different ways. Yes, it gives our teachers their contractual prep. We now had a second phys ed teacher for the next 2 years, and the gym is a space where certainly 2 teachers can work together with 30 students and not, for lack of a better word, tie up another classroom. Because if we didn't move 2nd grade over, we'd run out of room at Barton if we had the 22 classrooms. We'd have just enough, and then that would be it, 22 classrooms. Then there would be no space for anything else, special ed, specialists, that kind of thing. So when we talked about this, Rob and I said, okay, well, if the preschool moves over to Barton and can go into the 2 rooms in the school that are geared for early childhood, and there was a lot of debate whether preschool was actually there years ago, depending on who you listen to. I believe it was, but okay, so, but we have those 2 classrooms that are early childhood would be perfect for them. And then we would have the space at Barton to do that if grade 2 moved over to Bart, and then we talked a lot about that, about the K-1-2 Continuum, with different things moving forward, but I'll get into that. I just want to keep this moving here. And as you can see, we asked for, each school has a reading specialist, a teaching assistant at each grade level, and Rob talked about his, a special ed teacher just for kindergarten, which hasn't been the place right there. And also, our health and safety monitors are included on our plan as well. So I believe, and I hope the maps made it into your book before.
The health and safety monitors.
Yeah, not the health and safety.
They were deleted.
The map.
Did I say they were there? I apologize.
The only other thing on the
I
phys
just-
ed piece that we want to add
Go
is
ahead,
that
yeah.
there was a lot of interest from the summer requests, was that, yeah, you didn't see the point. It's a yin and yang show here. And it was that
Yeah.
they really were looking, families were looking for physical components for the summer programs. And so, John, who's a former phys ed teacher himself, said this would be an opportunity to do exactly these types of things. And then, because of our scheduling, because I only have, again, there's a lot of assumptions. If this were to go forward, I would have 7, 5, and 7. That 5, if I scheduled it correctly, would give the additional phys ed teacher a chance to do something that this district has not been able to do in a long time, and do some adaptive PE with kids who don't normally go into the phys ed activities that typical peers do. We talked to the PE, the OT people, and they really felt like that could be super beneficial for our younger students. So, it wasn't just the class size, it was a lot of things.
And the fact that kids haven't been moving for the last year and a half, so if we can do a little bit more to get them moving and off devices in phys ed, that's where we went with that direction, so, with the phys ed teacher, so.
And the 3 teaching assistants, it really goes back to the flood the classroom. We have an opportunity, and Dr. Nash alluded to the study where the watershed study, which the STAR study that talks about class sizes. Well, there's a huge component of the class size. It's not just flooding the classes with a person, a body. It's a quality, capable body. It's comparing those teachers and then loading them with good PD, putting them together with a new curriculum coordinator, asking them to do the tasks that they're tasked to do, but with supports. And that's where the TAs can come in, doing some RTI. I mean, I've never had the ability to do a deep dive in RTI like I will have next year. It was on purpose that Dr. Nash put the data assessment tour that we use, because that's all a major part of these plans as well. You can see the data, and this is the part that when you look at our data and you look at K4, you're saying, oh, it's not that bad. We have the opportunity, it's gonna sound good to great. We have the opportunity to take this. This is game changing. And I just, like I said at the beginning, I haven't been this excited. And the research shows if you do it and you do it right, and you support it with the teachers that you're putting in front of these kids, and you get it in 2 years, you should see not just a recovery plan, you should see an acceleration.
And I know I mentioned earlier, there are maps in there that have kind of, we mapped it out, if you will, not necessarily specifically where people are going, but the space-wise, what classrooms were, what special ed classrooms, and that, and we have a draft schedule. I mean, we're thinking, we're trying to have as much ready as we can.
Because this is a big
Hopefully it
ask for the
approves. I mean,
teachers
this
to
is-
move,
yes.
and for our 7 teachers to have to move, and we understand that. Teachers feel like that's their classroom, that they don't pay rent, but they own that space. It's just one of those, we understand that.
I think maybe this is a good point just to stop, and I know we said a lot in a short amount of time, but
All right,
maybe some questions
from the board
to,
members. Yes, Mrs. Forbes.
So a couple of questions, please. So the teaching specialist, John, that you spoke of, that's the teaching assistants, right? Just a different word?
if I said specialist, yes, I misspoke, teaching
Okay,
assistants. Yes,
perfect.
each grade level would have a teaching assistant.
Okay, so that's my question. Each grade level will have a teaching assistant, and how will they be used on a daily basis?
Well, we have a job description of teacher assistants here, but we've talked about that assistant would be used at that grade level to obviously maximize the number of students and the most opportunities. You know, if you think about it, if you had a reading specialist, a teacher assistant, and a classroom teacher in a class of 15 students, you could do some great work with that. So,
Right. So I totally agree with that. However, one body, 7 classrooms. One body, 5 classrooms, one body, 7 classrooms. Without going into the job description necessarily, would it be who needs me the most today? Who's got the most
Go
difficult
back a couple
classroom?
pages and you look at this,
The graphs would
and
be,
you say, where
needs the
where
help?
am I hurting? What can we do to stop that from hurting? And what we'll do is we will coordinate with these TAs, because they can't be brought in and not trained. They have to be trained in specific things. And we were looking, there's a piece that Dr. Sewell will speak to about interventions, kids. Yeah, it's in either the teachers, or it's both in the teacher and in the TA. But the key is we would key it, I mean, and it's funny, because the teacher's assistant may actually be working with the kiddos in the green. Sounds odd, but the classroom teacher, the certified teacher, might be working on phonemic awareness, for example, with a struggling group of kids for that session. So all the goal is to make sure that we keep less kids off the sped rolls and more kids, you know, in the regular curriculum with inclusion and.
Could I just jump in, Mrs. Forbes, and ask a question? So is that work being done in the classroom or out of the classroom?
Both, actually. I would see it as both. You know, we have it set up for both.
So are we gonna be pulling kids from core instruction though?
You hope not.
no,
but,
I mean, not with that.
it
I
would
mean,
be
I would see more in than out.
It would
I
be
know what you're
4 plus
saying.
1.
More as a push-in model, we originally talked about 2 things that needed to happen. One, we need to identify specific intervention resources. And then 2, we need to train all people, including not just the TAs that we would hire for this 1 year, but also the reading specialists in Title I, because we don't have specific core intervention resources that we use across the board. And that could be, we looked at this being more push-in, particularly with some of our classes that we know are co-taught. So you flood a classroom with multiple educators, Title I teacher, reading specialist, regular classroom teacher, special ed teacher, and then you may have a TA working under any one of those, but they have to receive some training. And that's the key as to why I suggested that we may need to rethink some additional days and front-load those, at the beginning of the year.
We have the ability to do small group teaching, and I know it has an effect. And so there will be opportunities where 15 kids, I mean, honestly, you could have 3 sections in a classroom where all 3 are being supervised for 5 kids at a time. That's in the elementary, I've never seen it. I can't wait.
All right, Mrs. Forbes, sorry to jump in on that.
I totally agree with you there on that. As far as the physical ed, John, you said exactly what I was thinking with this year of kids not having sports and all of that. That's a huge position. And my excitement, if this plan is approved, would really be for the incoming kindergartners who are going to have the most quality 2 years ever. So I appreciate all of your work on here, and it looks like a great plan. And I'm with you, super excited. If we can pull it off. I'm off.
Other questions?
And I know you guys thought a lot about this, but why not having this preschool go to the high school? So we have a program here for our high school students to work with, early childhood education. I know we threw it around a lot. Mrs. Forbes was very, a strong advocate for that. I know there's a lot of building things that probably would have to happen to make the logistics work. And transportation.
Logistics, that's, to be honest.
Adjustments you have.
Right,
It
yeah,
wasn't.
and transportation and
Well,
whatnot.
we have the little minibus. I've already thought of that. We have that little bus now. They can drive me over to wherever
And
they
you're
need
right, I
to.
know it's come up before, but just in the way we talked it, like I said, the 2 rooms that would be used are
They're
already
perfect.
early childhood
Right.
rooms.
So that's,
Right.
that's the
You
current
know,
corner
and-
4th grade room. We won't name names, but that's the corner 4th grade
It
room.
was in the back
It
of the
has
corner
its
of the
own
school, yeah.
exits, its own bathrooms.
We're
Yeah,
really
it's
thinking about the
perfect.
spacing and,
Right.
trying to maximize our money for
Right.
staff.
What we
That's
have,
one of the
right.
plans that we were
Recording in progress.
Thank you.
hoping to do.
Is there a way
Yes.
to get our high school students, though, to get time to come over?
Like an internship.
Yeah.
You have to redo
high
your
school.
schedule, and it has to be not a rotating schedule, and it has to be longer blocks. If you have something different, then
Right.
you're usually running into the problem, but yeah, you can.
Not
necessarily
the longer blocks because high school gets out almost 2 hours.
No, it's more to make their time worthwhile. Instead of a 55, 60-minute period, you run a double 80. So you have 160 minutes, so you have them longer. If you run 8 blocks, a 4x4. And then you can run an AM or a PM internship. And so therefore, we are preschool AM and PM. You could have interns in the AM and also in the PM.
Maybe I shouldn't even bring this up because it's water under the bridge, but we used to have the discussion. I know, she's like, don't bring it up. But we used to have the discussion of possible internships and that kind of just, so.
Something for the future.
Yeah, there you go.
Superintendent is taking notes.
I'm already giving you work.
So.
Mr. Burke, Mrs. Griffin, you all set with questions? Mr. Burke?
I'm excited as you guys are. I think I'm very impressed by this plan. I guess I just want to couch it with concern, knowing that this is a 2-year plan, right? And knowing how it is to run a building that in 2 years from now, these will be actual people, and you're going to have to say goodbye to some of these people. I mean, I'm hoping we can work over those 2 years to budget to keep some of this, but there's no way we keep all of it, right? So I know what that does to a building when you have to get rid of people that now have been there for 2 years.
And that would be, known, whoever hire, would say this is the Easter money, and actually there are positions out there now, it says it sort of on the job description, emergency position.
Yeah.
However.
No, and I think
it's 1 or
everybody's
2
doing
years,
it,
but-
so I think that's clear.
Yeah, I
think it's easy to lose that over 2 years, so I just want to be careful that we're
No, you're.
reminding our
absolutely
staff as we go that this is a 2-year plan, and I hate to say it, be callous, but don't get
And one thing
attached.
too, we talked, we always said as a staff member, and again, this is just elementary, you haven't heard the rest of it, but
Yep.
if there was ever a year you had the urge to maybe switch grades, try something else, this could be a good
Yeah,
time
you could have
to
internal moves.
to do it, because if this were to go through, there's a lot of positions to try out
Yeah.
and to choose from, so.
Yeah. And then just looking at you all as administrators, you're talking about an increase of at least 7 additional evaluations every year too. So it's a lot of work. So I'm impressed that this is what you're proposing. I think it's fantastic. I'm very excited about the idea of adaptive PE. If we can pull that off, adaptive PE is needed everywhere. So
No, it's good. And at the end of the day, I just think what we're doing, we're bringing in people, because, I talked to some of my colleagues and their districts aren't using the money this way. They don't even know what their district is using their money for. Anything, I think that, the plan, here's the money, here's what we want to do with it. I think Dr. Nash has guided us through a fabulous, way to spend this money.
I agree.
Not buying like new curtains or something like that. We really want to put bodies in to try and get better.
absolutely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, like, we used to have a lot of this level staff. I mean, we did have kindergarten classes that we had more teachers. We had
TAs.
we had the TAs. It's almost like we're just putting back what we used to have in some respects. And I want people to kind of realize that in our community and the public, like, we're not asking for something that hasn't occurred here in this town before. This has been best practices in the past. We're just making sure that our kids finally have that again, because we had to make some deep cuts over the years.
And it might sound pie in the sky, but
Yeah.
to whom much is given, much is given. If we do it right, and it could turn into somebody looking at it and saying, this is the way to do it. And this is so, again, there's no telling. If we do this plan and we don't see amazing results,
Shame on us.
Shame on us, because
Shame
there's
on us.
there's
Absolutely.
nothing left to on this. So, so pressure's on, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's a good problem to have.
And I've heard a lot of excitement, not just from you folks this evening, but from your staff, and parents too in the community. Very, very grateful parents, because it got trickled down through the PTO meetings and it went out to
shared with our
those,
staff the other
yeah,
day.
it went out to those baseball games and to the soccer games, and everybody was talking about the excitement. And so I think our community is in full support of this. So I thank you for that.
Anything else, Mr. Burke?
No, good.
I have a couple things. We've been using the word flooding with staff and flooding, and maybe I'm going to be a little nitpicky here, but that concerns me with the fact of we want quality over quantity, right? And I've heard that said, and I'm glad that we're saying that. But I feel like we're throwing a lot of people at a situation, and we have the refunds and sources to do that right now, which is great. My concern is, and I keep hearing it, we're going to do PD, this takes, any push-in model, you need collaboration between a TA and a teacher, or a special education teacher and a teacher. That concerns me. I guess my question with the 2, 2, and 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2, was there any conversation from the admin team about not starting at the peak and starting a little bit lower, maybe going 1, 1, and 1 to start, see how we integrate that? The money is used over 2 years. I just feel like there's the possibility that we're throwing way too much at it and we're not going to do any of it with quality. And that's just my concern. So was there any, I guess my first question to you both is, was there any discussion about adding 1 teacher at each grade level instead of the 2, getting quality people in, seeing where that goes, and then if we have the capacity to grow it, we grow it. I feel like, talk with teachers about lofty goals at the beginning of the year and trying to get realistic. So I guess I've asked the question and I need to quiet and let you guys talk.
We did start with 1. 1 per each grade level, and Dr. Nash, if you want to jump in here, because I know, well, it was kind of the 3 of us when we read it, let's talk about 2, so I figured it.
And if you look at the class size reduction in the early grade study for Tennessee, there's a big difference between, we would have got it to 18 because we did those numbers, we ran those numbers, and the difference is 13 to 17 in the grade levels that's where they saw the bang for their buck. So as again, and that's, if you look, there's also $50K devoted just to professional development, and I'm sure you're as excited about a new curriculum person coming on board, because that's been a weakness for us since we've been here. We haven't been offering our great staff the ability to get even better, and so that, you're absolutely right. With this, we looked at that, and we had the ability to do it this time for a 2-year period, and I think we jumped at the opportunity to do this. We renegotiated the buildings at that point, and because originally we didn't think we had this much money. We were at Easter 2, and we created a plan for that, and it would have been a workable plan. I think we would have seen some rewards. I don't think we would have seen them to the level that we're hoping to see them.
Just a distinction between small class size and flooding the classroom. So the small class size was based on, let's get it down to 15, because we believe that that's where we're going to see our biggest impact. And then the second piece was, what additional professional support staff do we need, knowing that literacy is going to be our focus at the elementary levels? And that's where the model of let's flood a classroom with trained professional staff. We know, based on our work with, in our meetings, Sue and I, with our Title I teachers, that we don't have enough Title I staff. So we knew that. So we knew that adding a reading specialist who could be kind of the core person who could then train some of the teaching assistants is going to give us that additional support we need. And we just felt that starting the year with 17 or 18 in the classroom as opposed to 15 with some additional staff over a 2-year period, longer period, we thought we would see better results based, again, on looking at what the research has showed us, that there were huge gains, 50 to 60% percentile. So that was our hope, and really spending a good chunk of this money early on, because the residual effect is going to be hopefully middle school and on. And that was our goal.
Well, respectfully, the data from the research is gonna, obviously look better when you have less, the teacher-student ratio is less. But we're also, again, respectfully, we need to find quality people to do the job. So if you have 7 or 8 second-grade teachers, and we only get 7, and there's one that's not up to where they need to be, now we have an equity issue. So again, just from my perspective, starting out, again, not small, this is still a drastic, 1 per grade would have been a drastic increase, lowering the numbers, then providing some TA support to what Mr. Polzarski was talking about, so maybe small groups within the mainstream classroom. But I was just wondering if that conversation came up, because, I feel like we have a great opportunity. I just don't want to, are we asking somebody to run the marathon when all they can run is 10 miles at this point? Let's get them to 15 miles, then get them to 24 miles, that type of thing. But
We did have that discussion. I think it was based on some of our past conversations and the fact that we tend to get a lot of candidates at a lot more at the elementary level, certainly, than we ever do at the middle and high school level. We probably could not, and probably may struggle in some areas had we tried to attempt something like this. because initially this was some of our discussion, but we felt that we could accomplish it. We know that we have some remote teachers already that may just convert into this, so we felt that, I think the two principals will tell you that they wanted to give this a shot and think they can fill those positions. I think our biggest struggle, quite frankly, is going to be in the reading specialist, which is why when I wrote the draft of the job description and qualifications, we didn't ask just for a consultant teacher of reading license, but someone who has advanced coursework in reading, because those are very difficult positions, and I think those are critical to fill. Yeah. So, but
So the move, pre-K move, is that a long-term? I believe me, I'm hearing my staff say to me, "Stay in the moment, Dave." That's what you tell us. So I should be staying in the moment, but I guess is the vision long-term to keep pre-K? If we make this move, are we looking to keep that as is?
Yeah, and I'm gonna read this this came from, a consultant that we've been working with who we speak a lot about with Tara Trainer, you've heard her name, and I asked her for some, give me some pointers on what you think about a move like this. And she basically said, teaching working together vertically is tough when we only have the K and 1 teachers together, so having the grade 2 there, they're currently kind of isolated at Barton because that's the only grade level at Barton that's using the phonemic foundation skills, so they're really at a loss in that respect. Grade 2 really needs to consistent communication with K and 1 in order to complete the scope and sequence that we've been using in the phonemic awareness instruction, especially now when the changes are obviously coming with the new ELA program that we're getting. The focus on K1 and 2 in the area of literacy really still centers around the learn to read phase, where 3rd grade and up is considered the reading to learn. You guys have all heard that. And K to 2 together are considered the building block years needed to build strong and literate readers, and you'll find that developmentally most groupings link K to 2 together. So I do think, yes, Dave, that would be a long-term, yes.
unless you do a total reorg down the road of your school district, which could very well occur.
Which could hurt, right,
Which
which could occur.
With except to the preschool, I mean, the preschool's coming to us, that certainly doesn't, the preschool could go somewhere else in a few years and another grade level could come to Barton. I mean, I don't, that, not that far ahead yet.
But the K1-2 is really the hope to keep that tied together. It should have been.
So the next thing, this is probably just me being a little bit nitpicky again, I apologize, but the special education teacher, when you have the goal of a special ed teacher is not to prevent special education referrals. The goal of a special ed teacher is to support a student on IEP and support their goals and objectives. So as one of the goals is to prevent special education referrals for at-risk or struggling students. I mean, it's really not the goal of a special ed teacher.
I think I totally respectfully, I think every special ed teacher I know would want to see more and more kids banging off of special ed, and so.
Well, obviously, the goal,
Right.
when a student gets on an individual ed plan, the goal is to provide the supports necessary to hopefully at some point remove them from special education. But for us to say that we want to hire a special ed teacher to prevent referrals is, that's where interventionists come in or additional staff, or, again, just me being a little bit nitpicky, but it sticks out.
Helping someone, I get, my regular ed teachers consistently go to the sped teachers to say, hey, what would you, and those sped
Well,
teachers.
right, but their job, a special education teacher's job is to support a student's IEP.
And luckily.
And you can use them in other facets,
and
for
luckily-
sure, in their expertise, but just to have that out there was,
But the typical kindergarten classrooms, as you know, don't have a multitude of identified early learning IEP
Right.
students. So that's,
Right.
so that was the reason why our rationale was we could use them, but now we find out that this poor woman at Chafee's doing kindergarten, 1st grade, and her caseload is blowing up because there's so many identified and.
well, what is blowing up? What does that mean?
5 additional on her caseload, during the course of a year. So.
Was that like 25% increase, 50%
Oh,
increase?
yeah.
So then we're asking at the kindergarten level, we're asking for 2 kindergarten teachers and a special ed teacher. And this year's incoming kindergarten's like 70 kids?
105.
Oh, we're up to 105?
That, we go back to that normal number, 70 is the anomaly.
We're hoping
that
for
moves into
105.
grade one.
Okay. No, I just remember 70.
One of the
Okay.
theories behind, we talked back and forth about why a K-SPED teacher. And part of the theory was thinking of what happened last year with the kids coming in from K, no one went anywhere. So they were removed from any daycare setting, any kind of preschool, whatever. So we knew that we needed to think about how we were going to deal with that group. And then secondly, when Rob and I were talking, because I know the caseload in K is relatively small, they get identified either coming in off of a preschool already, or they get identified about January or so. But we said, can we use that person for the first half of the year, more in a preventative, and that's probably where that word came from, role, so that they can go into classrooms, knowing as teachers start to see in about October, some things are starting to percolate, but the child isn't going to get on an IEP right away. We can go in and work that way, more in an intervention preventative way. And then come January, when it starts to blossom, we can really start to identify. So that was part of that. So probably using it more in an intervention, Dave, than preventative was the way we were talking about this additional K SPED teacher.
Hey, just, to Mr. Burke's point earlier, is just, these are people who, it's not sustainable, right? So we just don't want the perception to be that our kindergarten class sizes are so low, because it's in 2 years, they're gonna jump back up depending on the numbers too. I'm
Or
probably
you get
gonna,
support from the town.
yeah, history, let's hope that changes.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna regret saying this again, because those of you who know me, I was pushing early literacy, and I truly respect that the elementary were focusing on literacy, but I'm sure the middle school would like to have students from Barton coming in with some math skills too, and I don't see anything indicated in here for any sort of math support. I understand the additional grade, the 2 and 2 grade classroom teachers for 3rd and 4th, one reading assistant, 2 teaching assistants, but was there any conversation about any sort of math interventionists? I see the middle school's asking for 3. Was there any talk at your level, John, to add any sort of math support? Because I hope we don't, I'm not saying we're going to abandon it, I know we're not, but
The short
really,
answer
that's
is
really where we
no.
should have.
The short answer is no, we're not, as you see here, the
I know it's
data
not
didn't-
there, but did you guys discuss it? Was it a discussion point? And how come we didn't
We're
think
gonna
of
ask
doing it?
a lot of our we're not losing the Title I folks.
Yeah.
And so the ability for the Title I with a reading specialist to shift some of those high level readings, I'm just speaking of Chafee. Because my grade 1 team requested a math, and we brought it to the team, vetted it, and it didn't pan out. Because what we can try to do is convert some of our Title I supports into some math, which they haven't been able to do.
So how much Title I support do you guys have, though, at your
I have a
levels?
full-time,
You have one?
one full-time,
And how much do you have?
One full-time.
And are they just primarily math?
literacy.
Literacy.
yeah.
Literacy.
Right, so there's no, my
Right.
point is, there's
I
no
know,
math,
yeah.
and I could get it at the Chafee level if you just want to strictly stay literacy, but I really think Barton should be having some sort of math.
Right, and obviously if we got the reading specialist would focus on reading.
Right.
And we could take that Title I person and have her, or they, focus on math. I mean, absolutely.
All right. if
But
that's
I know,
the plan.
I know what you're saying, like, there's nothing concrete looking that says, where's the math support?
Yeah.
I get it.
All right, Mrs. Forbes.
2 quick things. I think that for the current kindergarten class, it is extremely important that they get the flooding, if you will, because this year, which should be that beginning foundation, didn't pan out the way it should have. So I think that's really, calling it flooding, calling it whatever you will, they're going to be more needy, if you will, academically than the kindergartners coming in 21. My question would be about all of these people that we're hiring, because we want them all on the first day to be as prepared as they can be, where they are 2-year positions or 1-year positions. I don't know contractually if they could be required to do, and if we could find a way to have them have PD required as part of their job training prior to what the teachers currently contracted.
Sure. Generally speaking, when you hire staff, you give out, some of these advanced dates, some of it's the mentoring. But certainly, we've built in money, and we also have Title IIA monies left over from FY21 unspent, as well as our anticipated. So we're looking at well over $150,000 that one could use and pay staff. pay your staff to come in. I anticipate that we're probably going to want to do that with a lot of different staff. The question is, will they come? I hope they will, because I think there's a lot that can happen before school begins, particularly. And some of it can be online too. So with a new curriculum director, some of that could be online training. So the person doesn't have to physically be there, just commit their time. Yeah.
So specifically to these new positions, rather than will they show up, it is a job requirement to show up, and because we require it, we will pay you to be there.
That's generally the way we operate when we do that, yes.
Okay, great.
That's generally the way I've operated, is if we
Okay.
require it, we pay you.
Right, and that's what, I
And
think by law,
I'm
that's how you have to do it. If you require it, you have to
I'm
pay.
confident that we've got the resources to do it, both within this particular budget, but also within our Title IIA monies.
Okay, great,
yeah.
thank you.
So we'll give the new curriculum director, a good start.
Right.
Any other questions for our elementary principals within the plan that they have brought forward tonight? Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just thrilled.
Come back if you have more.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot more coming your way.
37.
Yes. Amen. This is. No. I know, I want all my kids to be younger again.
Right?
I know.
Can I,
I know.
can I
Exactly.
I know, let's rewind the clock. Then I'd be younger too.
Let's turn that clock back, so would I.
Wishful thinking.
Tonight will be known as tab 4 and tab 5.
I guess I will start. So this plan has gone through a couple of revisions since I first started. It was a lot loftier. We were looking at a lot more than 800K originally for the middle school. I'm going to start with just our math interventionists. So as you were just discussing that they're focusing a lot on literacy, what I'm seeing in the data and the research is that our gaps are more, we do have gaps in literacy, but more so in math. And we had stripped our building of math support over the last 5 years. And we have a lot of reading support already. I'd like to put some math support back in. So I'm proposing to add a math interventionist at each grade level that can work with our Title I math interventionist we already have, Ms. Prunier, to provide support in math, especially in our tier 2 and 3, but also tier 1 support as well as needed. They could be working in the form of small groups, push-in support, and even co-teaching. We're looking at redesigning our schedule to make sure that we have a solid intervention block where a lot of the intervention and enrichment stuff can happen. But also they'd be working in the classrooms. They'd be working in addition to what Ms. Prunier is already doing as part of Title I math. Again, I reference back to the NWEA, our article about math, that there's been a lot of growth. They saw more growth in ELA during COVID than they did with math. And at the middle school level, I think it's really hard to teach algebra remotely. So, and other skills that they're learning in especially 6th and 7th grade math. So we really do need some math support. Ms. Prunier's been awesome about data and looking at data and using what we have to test kids out. She's been using iExcel. She used Dibbles on 5th and 6th grade. Like she's been great. So the data's there. Like we know how we need to group these kids already. It's just a matter of getting the support in there to do what we need to do with our staff. Any questions on math interventionists? No. The other.
Quick one.
Yep.
So with the position, I mean, they are being paid like teachers, correct?
They are teachers. Yep.
Right. So are they going to have a same type of caseload or a course load
They'd be
as
working
teachers?
similar to what a Title I teacher does. So they'd be working in conjunction with the regular ed teachers in the classroom and doing small
So they'll
group
each
work.
be assigned to 5 teachers or whatever it is?
Yeah,
over the course
however
of a
we
day?
break it up, it's going to be based on need and where the need is. We're going to look at the data and assign them accordingly.
All right, so you'll have 4.
It could be fluid depending on what we need.
Right, so you're going to have 4 math interventionalists.
Yep.
Interventionists to go over 3 grades, and they're
Yep.
all going to be able to be kept busy, so to speak, all day long?
Yeah.
Okay. With structured schedule and planning time with the
Yes,
teachers
yes.
they're pushing in with?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. The other piece of this is, so our incoming 5th grade is adding an additional 31 special ed students to our caseload next year. So part of this is I had already talked about putting my 3 special ed teachers in the building had already been trained and had already co-taught before. So, and especially 5th grade, we were going to do a little bit more of that next year. Ms. DeJoya works seamlessly with her partners in grade 5. However, it's virtually impossible for my 3 special education teachers to not only do the caseload we already have, but then the additional caseload with pullouts and everything else. So I'm requesting, I had to kind of revamp what I was asking for because a lot of the support that they need is in literacy and in ELA. So I'm requesting 2 special education teachers, partly because over the next couple of years, we're going to have a high number of special ed kids. Of course, the goal is using these staff members to get these students off of their IEPs so that they can be in a full inclusion classroom or get at least not have to, you need the pullout services as much anymore. But with the high numbers between 5th and 6th grade, we really need some additional special education support over the next couple of years so that we can co-teach, especially in the English classes. So we have teachers that can do pullout and we have teachers that can push into classes and co-teach. So we may not be able to co-teach all 4 subjects every day, but at least in literacy and maybe some of math, we'll be able to get some co-teaching done across the board if we have this extra sped support. I just don't see how my 3 teachers are going to do this by themselves. So that I had to kind of shift my vision. I was looking at math and ELA intervention, but then looking at all of this, we'd be better served getting support in the classroom as a co-teaching model for all kids. So even if you're not a special ed kid and you're in an inclusion class that has 2 teachers, you're going to benefit from that down the road. And it's going to decrease our class sizes. The 5th grade class is a pretty big class in comparison to the other 2. So this is one of the reasons why I have added this in here. And down the road, I'm hoping we can keep at least one of these if through a retirement or something to that effect. I'd love to keep an extra special ed teacher in the building.
Any guys got questions?
Yeah.
Just bringing in 2 special education teachers, we talked about co-teaching. Are you going to have the opportunity for planning for that so it doesn't turn into I hate
Yes.
to use the term, but the glorified aid that
My special ed
teacher
teachers
becomes.
already have common planning time with the teachers that they work with, and they've already done co-teaching. So this is not new to the ones I currently have.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at these as more of the people who are going to help with the pullouts
Okay.
and things of that nature. We're looking, a lot of them, we need a lot of reading, math pullout too, but mostly reading. So we're looking at trying to get some special education teachers with strong English backgrounds
Gotcha.
to help with that.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, we already have teachers who are co-teacher trained and have done it before. It's just the
Yeah.
last couple of years, they haven't been able to.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back that way.
And this will help.
So, yep, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Yep.
sure.
So the math intervention teachers, I'm assuming when they're hired, they'll have a background, a degree in math, not just a certification.
Right,
Okay, because
that's
one
what
thing.
I'm looking for.
Yeah,
I mean, whether I can find it,
I know, well, I'll pray.
I'm
But,
gonna do my best, but yes.
I think that's sometimes the missing ingredient is having somebody that actually has a degree in math, teaching
Right.
math, and not just somebody that has passed a test.
Right.
And I really would like to see our district have, strong interventionists that understand math in and out,
Right.
instructing our kids.
Completely understand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as soon as if this goes through tonight, I'm hoping that we can start looking post tomorrow, for these things, because I think they're important.
To make sure you look at a transcript, that just because one is
Yeah.
Right.
certified doesn't mean you're qualified.
Yeah.
Exactly. The next one on our list is reading specialist, which I know we've talked about before. We have this on for 1 year, and part of the reason for that is that we've talked a little bit about Title I money and shifting some money to make that a more permanent position in the district. So under ESSER, it's 1 year, but that doesn't mean that it necessarily will go away. I'm hoping that this is one of the positions that we can just add to Title I after talking with Dr.
We had
Sue.
additional Title I money this year that we were able to cup together, and we couldn't hire someone because no one applied who was qualified. We still have some of that money as a rollover. So there's the potential that when the second year comes, you could end up keeping this person, just putting them in as Title I teacher.
Right. So that's kind of my long-term plan with that one, but we definitely need somebody to work along. We do have a great Title I reading teacher in 5th and 6th grade right now, but she's overwhelmed. She needs some additional support. So this will definitely help with our Tier 2, Tier 3, and Title I support. Having
That's a larger class.
and yes,
We really need that.
yes, and 7th. She's not able to serve a 7th grade because she can only do so much. She's one person. So. But I think that having that extra person and then being able to co-teach and having, as I'm going to talk about in a second, teaching assistants is really going to help us be able to get all of the students the support they need, whether they're in a co-taught class or just a regular inclusion class or a regular classroom, having that support. And able to have enough people to support us during our intervention blocks too. So there's places for these kids to go based on what they need, whether that be enrichment or whether that be extra help. Spanish teacher, this is my favorite. I did a lot of research on this one. So this is another position that I'm hoping that in a few years, if we have some retirements, we can make it a permanent position. I think it's an important position, adding foreign language to the middle school level. I think it's important for a couple of reasons. One, it works along with Mr. Nugent and the students getting exposure to the curriculum before they actually have to choose a language in. Like if they can take the first level of Spanish in between 6th and 7th grade, then they don't have to take it when they get up here. Is that what we were talking about, right?
Yeah, well, they can start Spanish 2.
They can start
if
Spanish
they
2 or
qualify.
3, depending on where they at, or they can retake it if they want to when they get up there. So it gives them a different opportunity. And I growing up, always had foreign language, and I had 3 different languages growing up in middle school. And I just feel like the kids are missing out on so much by not being exposed to those different types of curriculum. So we're looking to design our arts curriculum and strengthen it and based on the developmental needs of our kids. It also plays a couple different roles. If you look at the research of kids in middle school taking languages, it really does help with their language acquisition. It just even testing skills. They have, I listed a bunch of research for you in my proposal. I won't go through it all, but it really would be a valuable class to have for at least 6th and 7th grade. I can't do all grades because they have to take it in a block and for it to be successful, and one person can only do so many kids. But also right now my 7th grade teachers are picking up a lot of that slack in our arts program. They're teaching a lot of current events classes and literacy and extra things that they could be used, first of all, for longer block or double blocking classes, or also doing intervention in their core subject, which would be a better use of their talent in grade 7. So that'll help tremendously with that as well. And lastly is teaching assistants. We're asking for a teaching assistant for each grade level, I believe, for the next year to support us in these grade levels. So it's great to have co-teaching and it's great to have Title I, but there's classes that may need some additional support that maybe they don't have a lot of the really struggling kids, but they still have kids that need support. So based on data and flexibility, we'll be able to use, because they're not assigned to a specific special ed kid, we are going to be able to use them differently. So we're going to be able to use them in a variety of different classrooms where we see the need. They'll be able to do all 3 tiers of instruction in our RTI program. And do some intervention as well. So I think having that extra support across the board is important. And we have some wonderful teaching assistants right now that work in the classrooms. And they're in there because they're assigned to a student that's in there, but they support everybody when they're in there. But then there are some other classes that could really use that support that don't have that benefit. So I really think adding some teaching assistants next year will be very helpful across the board with that. So, and flooding interventions, I don't know if intervention block, you can flood, when I say flooding interventions, I mean that if the intervention block for grade 5 is period 3, then all of the support people, a lot of the support people can flood that grade level to provide the support. And then if it's period 6 or 5 for another grade, they go there. So there's ways that you can flood without having them all in one classroom. It's more of a model for intervention where everybody is focused on that grade level for that period or that section of time. So we're looking at doing something like that next year. And all of this means that we will have to adjust our schedule. We have a couple different models depending on how we go and what people we get, that we might go with longer blocks, a different type of rotation for specials and things like that, places where we can build in the SEL and the intervention. So we have a couple different ideas, but we've held off changing anything until we know what we have. So that will be a July project for me and my guidance counselors. So that's.
Any questions from the members? Yes.
When I hear about the scheduling change, is that something that you've also spoke to all the teachers about and had
We
them
talked
weigh
about
in?
that, what would you like to see in the schedule, what would you like to see differently? So basically, they loved having the longer blocks. They loved, like, we're not gonna have bells next year. Like, we've talked about a lot of this already. It's just a matter of, I'm gonna put together a couple different proposals to send out to them. They all know to watch for it over the summer, that this is, but they're fine with it. They've been great. So I couldn't ask for a better group of teachers, quite honestly, to work with. They're very easygoing when it comes to this, because they know we're getting all of this support and it's gonna take some adjustment. But whatever I do, I'll make sure that I do evenly so everybody is, everything is, it's not gonna change that much, but they really did like having the longer blocks. It's a matter of building in CPT and intervention time that I have to tweak a little bit, common planning time. For them.
I know, CPT, I know.
Yeah.
And acronyms.
I
So-
like the fact that I'm hearing
But
that.
yeah, we talked about, I did a survey with them at the end of the year about what they liked, what they didn't like, what they'd like to see going forward in the schedule next year, so they've been part of the conversation.
Sounds good.
Any other questions? Just real quick, Amy, could you just, so a 6th and 7th grade, are they getting like 9 weeks of Spanish? Is it just gonna be like
It
a
should be-
comprehensive block?
It needs to be a half a year from what, for it to matter. So
Right.
yeah, they'd have a half a year of the language as part of their special rotation.
So one teacher will be able to do that for both grades?
Yeah. Yep, the way that we're gonna look at the rotation, it should be doable.
Did you look, I know you guys heard me say, well, we were shooting high with some of the positions, but did you think about 2? Would it be possible? Would that help? I just feel like that could be a lot for one person to do everybody for a half a year, but if it fits within the schedule, then great.
Yeah, I think
Just feels like
that,
it's a lot. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
no, I think it is a lot, but I think that most of it would be, it depends on like it's creative scheduling is what it
Right.
really is. But
And Spanish teachers aren't easy to find.
they're not
either,
easy
so
to
it's like-
find, so I mean, I
that's
could
the
do
other
2,
thing.
and maybe we can't do, like, it's all gonna be matter about, we're gonna have to really sit down and look at it to see if it was, maybe we have to schedule it differently,
Well, it's just something to think about too, to add, I mean.
But
to
even if
add
we
that
end up just
position.
having it be an exploratory, it's still something they weren't exposed
Which
to
is good,
before.
right. Exposure to is nothing wrong with that.
Exposure is nothing
either.
wrong with it. So
Yeah.
we're shooting for being able to get that half a year in for them, maybe between 5th and 6th grade. And if we can't, then
You
they're
just-
exposed
at
to it,
least
and that's better
exposure.
than nothing.
Right, so they'll
So
get 2
either way,
years.
it's a win-win for the kids,
No, I
if we
agree.
can't do it that way.
Anything is better than nothing, so.
But- Exactly.
Okay. Anything else for the middle school? All right, Mr. Nugent, high school.
Thank you. So we are proposing 5 new teaching positions at the high school with the goal of supporting and accelerating students within the classroom through co-teaching and small class size. With these positions, we're hoping up to 90-95% of the support will be within the classroom. We are asking for some special education teachers, and we have students who receive services outside of the classroom that they would be able to help out with. 2-year positions would be for math and Spanish, with the goal to incorporate them into the regular budget after those 2 years. And then the other 3 positions, 1 year for an English teacher, and then 2 special education teachers, 1 special education teacher at least being dual certified in either math or science. That would certainly help out those classes as well. I mean, a lot of, the evidence goes with Amy's, with the NWEA and all that stuff. So I guess I'm not a man of many words, so I'm just gonna open up for questions.
Any questions from the committee, Mr. Burke?
It's just to hear you say that it was 2 of the positions that you were hoping to maintain after the 2 years. Do you have a sense that you have retirements, you have a plan? I mean, it's not
Yes.
unheard of to add positions at the end of each year, so.
Yes, we do have some retirements and some other thoughts as well.
Okay.
I mean, especially with the foreign language, we now have that as a 2-year graduation requirement, and we currently have 3 teachers in that department. But, I have been lucky enough to interview some Spanish teachers, so there are some good ones out there, but we have to act quick. Lee,
Right. We did hire one.
we did hire one,
We just hired
that there are other ones that are really, really good.
Just a logistics question then, probably for Dr. Nash. If, let's say we hire that Spanish teacher, Dave finds a permanent spot for that Spanish teacher in next year's budget, we just take that ESSER money and put it somewhere else next
You
year?
have the opportunity to certainly reappropriate that money.
Okay.
I'm sure. If you're able to, at the end of a year, if you decide that in your FY '23 budget, you can take a position that you want permanently,
Yep.
then that frees up that to maybe double up in another area where you say, well, I need another reading teacher or whatever, yeah, you certainly can. I think the difficulty will be trying to take some of these positions at the end of the second year. I think the goal
Too many.
to take some that you think you can roll in to your FY '23 and then roll into your FY '24 if they're going to be permanent positions that you want to keep.
Thank you.
Mrs. Forbes?
So just a quick question, Dave, about class sizes. So pre-COVID, we had some, I'll just say AP classes who had very, very few students. We had some electives that had very few students, and I'm talking between 5 and less than 10. And we had talked about that, and then COVID hit, and it was all kind of gone. So I don't know, I guess my question is dual. Have we looked at that as far as, I know we had talked about possibly mixing some of those. And then the second part of my question is, are we still doing early college? Because the AP in the early college, I know was something we had talked about putting together, and are we still doing that?
Yes, so we are still doing early college.
Okay, thank you. Somebody recently asked me and I didn't know. But as far as the class sizes go, you're talking about core classes, you're talking about all classes, because again, for example, a student who had 30 students in a chemistry class and that same student in an elective with 6. And that is super hard for the chemistry teacher and super easy for the elective teacher, and I don't know that that's the best use of our money. So when you're talking about class sizes, what classes?
So, I know you're just using that as an example, but we can never put 30 in a chemistry class. I know. I look up to see if it's Patrick or Corey. So the goal is, the priority goal is 8, 9, and 10. To have the college prep courses be no more than 20, and the honors courses no more than 24 or 25. So, and then to offer some of the older students some Edgenuity online courses, electives, SAT prep, college research, all that stuff. So that, those would be small class sizes. I don't know how you can kind of cure or solve the AP class size problem. One thing that we did, and any science class that is less than 12, the lab is incorporated into that class. So we're not able
And I guess
to do that.
AP was just an example that came to my mind. I guess I was more focusing on the electives because I understand the issue with the AP classes. And with the Edgenuity electives, hopefully we'll have more offerings with less actual in school. They're online when they do the Edgenuity
They're
electives.
online, but in school, yes.
But physically here, right? of course.
Physically, yep, physically
Right.
here.
Okay.
So the goal for this project is 8, 9, and 10, less than 20 or less than 25.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else from the committee? Just real quick, Mr. Nugent, tab 5, I know you like good humor. That's the color of a tab can, so you're pretty,
There you go.
yeah, the old soda tab, right? Isn't that the
Yeah.
color? So this is I know this is later in the packet, but I'm not sure if you'll be up here, so I'm just gonna ask it now. Was there any discussion about Director of Guidance, Dean of Students, to provide some supports? I think I see Adjustment Council later on in the packet, But strictly from your perspective as the building principal, was there any conversation of advocating for more support at the guidance level and at the building level to help support? I can't stress enough, I think you and Bob do a great job, but you're so thin up here as far as to being able to support all that, with scheduling, to some of September's point, if there's a director of guidance or dean of student for guidance or something to help support that, because it's a lot for you and him to do everything that's asked of you. So was the discussion had, and if so, could you describe it to us?
So we do have a director of guidance. We just didn't have one this year. We had a late, I wouldn't call it retirement or resigning, but maybe resigning. And then Bob and I talked and felt that we would support the guidance department in that position. So we are now in a better spot with one of these young people.
So was the position not filled?
The position was not filled because they were brand new, and we just didn't feel it was appropriate to choose one over the other to go in there. But there will be a guidance department head for next year.
With a current staff member or someone you
With
hired?
a current staff member.
So, but you're not adding another body to what you currently have?
We're not
Another
adding, but
FTE.
we're giving some of that
You're
administrative
giving a title, right.
responsibility to
But I
them.
still think you're very, in my opinion, very lean with the FTEs up in that department and to help you guys. So I'll let you finish. I
Yep.
apologize.
I mean, we've had, not with this, we've talked about a dean of students, but we have in the past, and we just feel that, the money is better suited for in the classroom right now.
Again, totally understand, but I
Yep.
would just maybe ask that we reconsider that or we figure out something how to support the high school. I mean, you have 5 grades, you have over 500 kids, you have 2 administrators. How many guidance counselors?
3.
3?
4. You have an adjustment and 3 counselors.
An adjustment counselor?
Right.
Right.
So we moved the adjustment counselor out
Yeah.
of the ACE program.
Are those 4 positions, they're all full?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was under the same impression as Dave, that we were scraping by with 1.5 and 2.
No, we added the adjustment counselor, Mrs.
Right.
Whalen, who was in the ACE program. You remember we added a social worker to that, and we moved her into adjustment. And then we hired 1 new counselor last year to fill a position, and then you had 2 existing.
Correct.
So your numbers really are in keeping with the recommendations from the National Guidance Council, because you're under the 200 or so
250.
at that, so with 3 counselors.
And we are, off topic, but we are reconfiguring the department as well. So we're going to have the 3 counselors be 8 through 12 instead of an 8th grade counsel. We kept it there because the pandemic, he worked well with the teachers and there was 1 person, but now we're switching back to, so 3 guidance counselors will be 8 through 12, so those numbers will come down. And then we have the adjustment counselor, and also downstairs, Terry and Liz are always around to support us if we need that extra emergency help.
Yeah, it totally understood. I know people step up, and I knew it's about having the capacity. It's having the right configuration, so to speak. And again, I'm a broken record. I'll keep talking about it, and hopefully someday something changes because, again, it's not a criticism of you at all as the leader or Bob as your assistant.
Yep.
It's just a daunting task for both of you to do. And I'll continue to advocate what's best for students at the high school. And I think more support at that level, whether it's a dean of students who supports guidance in the building or get creative with the position, I don't know. But it's just something, I want to get out there.
No, and I understand that. And, we have, a smaller 8th grade class coming in next year. Our heaviest class will be older and maturer next year, so I think we're.
All right, thank you, Dave. Anything else for the high school? All right, thank you both. Who is up next?
I am. Tab 6.
Tab
Which will
6.
be very quick. So tab 6 are called district-wide proposals. There are 4 proposals here for you. The first is the funding for summer academies. Those would be your summer programs that would be running each building will be, and building principal administrator will be working on those. We anticipate set aside around $40,000, $10,000 per building. There's some additional funds if we need it, particularly if we go ahead and do the matching summer DESI matching summer school expansion and engagement grant, but I anticipate that we have some other funds too that we can look at. Again, we did not get a great response from parents. Only 300 parents responded. It's about 1,100 total families. So I don't know what we'll get for participation rates, but we'll see. So I think that funding will be there. Also looking for some additional funding for staff professional development, earmarked specifically for the curriculum director. This is $50,000 over the next 2 years, but bear in mind that she or he will have access to the Title IIA grant and Title IV too, to support some of the needs with professional development for special education staff particularly. And then one of the things that you heard me talk about a little bit was earmarking some money specifically to select K-8 literacy and math intervention instructional resources. Hopefully, we're estimating 10,000, could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. Something that I would want the curriculum director to work on, particularly around the 5 areas in literacy, and then identifying specific intervention resources and that staff will use, our Title I in math at the middle school and also at the upper elementary school. And then we wanted to also put in some money for moving costs, the additional costs that it might take for us to move grade 2 and also preschool. So that's that placeholder. Anybody have any questions? And the proposal in that tab goes into a little bit more detail, but that's it.
I think in the past, and I could be wrong, we used our DPW to help move us.
We may have, and that could very well still be the case, but we wanted to at least put some money in there just in case there's overtime
It's always
costs or
better to
whatever.
plan.
Right.
Right,
We know we can always move it somewhere else in the
right.
long run.
For sure. All right.
Student service proposals, Dr. Henry Shawn will address those. That's tab 7. And if it's the second on your cost sheet, it's the second section down under district-wide.
Okay, so the proposal for district-wide is the addition of 2 school adjustment counselors for the first year, with the students coming back from, some of them from remote learning, as well as others that have just recently returned to school. We do need the additional support of school adjustment counselors just from a social emotional perspective, just to ensure that the students are available for learning. Additionally, we through the SOA grant, we added the 2 programs, the, Edgenuity, the additional social emotional components, as well as Second Step Digital. So we want to make sure that those are truly implemented, and this is another way to ensure that they're implemented. The school adjustment counselors in some cases can go into the classroom, teach that, also provides time for some teacher time to do preparation, et cetera, based upon the number of teachers, et cetera, that we're going to have in the district. So that's the main focus of it, is just to make sure that the students are available for learning, they're social emotionally and in the right frame of mind so that we can move forward. I'll keep going. The second area is that was proposed is a district-wide preschool, pre-K through 12 coordinator of health and wellness services. This is a district-wide position. It is a stipend position. So that this person would be responsible for health and wellness. That includes mental health, as well as health and wellness. This person would be responsible for any specifics with regards to COVID. We don't know what it's going to look like by the fall and what our requirements are going to be with regards to COVID-19 and any types of sports, et cetera, that we may need, as well as the fact that this person will oversee individual healthcare plans, which definitely needs to be overseen from a district perspective. Working with the food service coordinator, also being a liaison between the town, the school, the town, and the community, state, and local agencies as well, which was started essentially during COVID with Amy Granette working with the town with regards to COVID tracing, et cetera, as well as Kathy Schomer at Barton School. So we want to continue to develop and expand upon that. Again, like I said, it's a stipend position, and the person will be available, and also that person can be used as a nurse substitute because of the fact that we would have a nurse in place at the district, on the district-wide. Those are those two positions. Does anybody have any questions so far?
One question.
Sure.
So the 2 additional adjustment counselors, I'm assuming we're still filling Mrs. Thornton's position, so.
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Just checking.
Right.
All right, thank you.
That's a permanent.
Yeah, I just wanted to hear that. That's all.
Okay.
Any questions, other questions from the board? I apologize, Dr. Hemerson, I was stepped out. Could you just discuss the one adjustment counselor at Barton and Chafee, one at middle school and high school? Did you talk how that's going to be dispersed?
How it's going to be dispersed, I think
Right.
it needs to be dispersed based upon need. It's more like a 50-50 from my perspective. But that person has the availability to be, we'll focus in on, like, say, middle school, high school. Where the need is where that person needs to be. In some cases, I know you had stepped out, but the focus is on making sure that the students who are coming back from remote are in a good place, socially, emotionally, as well as the students who've just recently come back that are still struggling in some cases, and we need to make sure they're available for learning. Additionally, for the SOA grant, we did add in like the ingenuity, social emotional components, as well as the second step digital. And we want to make sure that those are implemented like particularly at the elementary school in the classroom, so that gives us some flexibility as to what and how we use them on a day-to-day basis. Additionally, we do have 2 social workers in the district, one that works with ACE, but the other that's a district-wide social worker that also provides an additional level of expertise for the district.
Who will be the direct supervisor for these 2 people?
I oversee school, anything to do with school adjustment counselors. So, but I will be working with the building principals to
Well, right,
figure
you
that out.
oversee it, but if they're in a building, it's the responsibility of the principal who oversees them. So
Right, that's what I said.
Where is these people going to be assigned, and who oversees them? Because
I will oversee them, and I will work with the building principals as to where they're going to be assigned. When they figure out the schedule and what they need, and we figure out where the needs are, then we will determine exactly where the people are going to be placed. And if it's rotating, or, it's going to be based upon the building principal's schedules as to what the need is and where it is. Because they also do have a school adjustment counselor at the elementary school, one in each building, but they're going to need additional support.
Okay, in the pre-K to 12 coordinator of health and wellness services, and again, I apologize, I was coming back in. It's a $20,000 stipend. Are we hiring this position, or did you say it's somebody already in the
No,
district?
it will be,
No, it has to be posted.
it will be posted, and somebody can apply internally.
And so we're
I'm
assuming
sure.
that someone internal will apply, and
Right.
as such, we would have to get a substitute nurse for them for the year. So, and that would allow then the ability for this person to also become your floater nurse who could sub when a nurse is out in the building.
So if somebody within the district takes the position, do they still get their current salary plus the $20,000?
Yes, yes. That-
To be a floater substitute?
No, to be the pre-K-12 coordinator. So they're getting their salary, and then they're getting a stipend to become the pre-K coordinator of health and wellness services in the job description that you have, the draft.
So potentially we pull a qualified nurse from our district, and then it will open up a position to hire somebody.
Yes,
And
to hire
hiring a school nurse is a daunting task to begin with. And then this person's gonna make $20,000 on top of has this been approved by the OEA?
No, we would have to negotiate this with the OEA.
Okay, yeah, that's, and again, it just goes back to my point, we can't find more support at the high school, but we can add this, and again, I'm not saying these positions aren't needed, again, okay. Any other questions from the board? Yes,
I would just advocate for this position because I think it is needed considering all the extra tasks that our, nurses did do this year. And I mean, going between COVID testing and the Board of Health and all that, we'd like to think that all that, like you said, is going to disappear. You didn't say it was going to disappear. That's my wishful thinking, but we just don't really know what's going to happen. So we need to plan and be thoughtful about it. And I know how much we did tax our nurses this year. And I would, I think having this position is a wise investment. I know personally, we've been trying to tackle health and wellness in this district, and more than ever, we need somebody that's going to work on initiatives for health and wellness, mental health and physical health and all of the above. So I think it's a really big, daunting task if somebody's going to take it on and do it thoughtfully and correctly.
and again,
Yeah.
Pal, I don't disagree with you, I just trying to wrap my head around
Right.
how it's all coming together, that's all. I'm not saying the position's not needed.
Right.
And it won't be valued, of course, it will be, just curious how it's all happening, that's all, just asking those questions.
One thing that if I
Yes.
could
Dr.
just
Knapp.
add,
Yep.
that in this one-year position, that person would also have to assume the responsibilities of the nurse leader, so you wouldn't be paying out that stipend that you currently pay. I just wanted to clarify that.
And how much would that stipend typically be?
2,500.
2,500, okay.
September, did you have your hand, and then I'll go to Corey?
I was just gonna make a point that, we heard so much when COVID began that this is uncharted water. And here we are again in uncharted water. We've never, had the ability to do what we're looking to do. We've never had the money. We're hoping to have the qualified bodies and the proper PD in place. So I think a lot of the things that we're thinking ahead instead of staying in the moment are things because we have no idea. And I feel like some of the questions, they have no idea either. There's that, what the ideal, but the reality sometimes is different. So I think it's a struggle for all of us to try to wrap our heads around having this ability. I think it's a great thing, and it's going to take a lot of people working hard to stay on top of it and make sure that our goals are being met. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's a good problem to have. There's no doubt about it.
Right.
There's some districts that aren't having these conversations about adding
Right.
35 positions.
Right.
And we'll be showing
mean-
off again like we did all last year.
Yeah.
Be like, look
It's-
at Oxford, yay!
It's really nice. For me personally, as a building leader, I had to cut a position today. So it's really, it's really a great problem to have here in Oxford. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure, we're elected to ask questions and make
Right.
sure,
Amen.
things are, we're advocating for parents and kids. And Mr. Burke, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dave. I just want to point out for folks that might be listening that in the job description, it seems like this position will also take some of the workload off the individual building nurses. I see that they'll be responsible for the district-wide individual healthcare plans.
We've not
Immunizations.
digitized those, and we've not done some things that can access K-12, so those were some duties that we were able to. But one of the things that, if I might just add, I think to be able to develop partnerships with outside organizations, I know I've had a conversation with one of the middle school one of the assistant principals about the need to, I wish I had time to be able to go and connect this student with some services outside. This is where I see this person being a key linchpin. To go and say to a principal or an assistant principal, hey, I know this kid doesn't qualify, but contact me. I've got some connections. And so for at least next year, particularly given the unknowns of kids who haven't been to school for 16 months.
Yeah.
When you think about it, I think this will be a critical. So, particularly looking at the last bullet on that first page and the first two on the next page, to me, were critical in that job description for that position.
Yep. Well, I mean, wraparound services are
just,
vital. I mean,
I know, and we have not been able to really address it K-12 and try to really develop, expand, and do that.
Yep.
I think.
Any other questions from the board for Dr. Henderson? Thank you.
I really appreciate these job descriptions, though. I can't praise you guys enough for the thought that's gone into this.
Yeah, last but not least.
Tab 11. Just kidding.
Hello.
Just kidding. Hello. Tab 8.
I was
Don't
gonna
get
say,
that
you sent me
excited.
the wrong place.
All right, Mr. Phillips, you're on.
Thank you. So, as with most technology purchases, this is done in consultation with the principals, teachers, about the needs that we have in the district. So, the first one is really going at the teachers who have done so much throughout this whole remote and hybrid learning. We all know that teaching doesn't stop in the building. So, and we really found that out more than ever last year when the teachers had to be working from home. The teachers all had a Chromebook that they were using, but we soon found that that wasn't going to be enough for them, especially when they're trying to run a remote meeting with 25 kids at home. It's a different setup from in their rooms when they returned. They have a desktop computer in their rooms at their desk that typically runs their smart boards or their interactive projector. So we saw teachers, flipping between the Chromebook and the desktops, and some teachers actually went out and bought their own laptops just to support what they needed to do. So this proposal is basically to get a laptop for all our teachers that would basically replace the desktop in the rooms. It would come with a dock, so the dock would basically stay in the room, connected to the interactive projector. At the end of the day, they pop the laptop off, they bring it home, they use it for all the online textbooks, the online, our student information system, anything that the work they need to do at home, that, typically goes unacknowledged for the most part. So it just helps with that experience. And it's a sense of equity too, because now, all the teachers who have to go out and buy their own don't need to spend that money. Everyone will have the resources that they need. This would be for all professional staff, so you'd have your classroom teacher, sped staff, administrator, guidance, anyone who's basically connecting to all our digital resources that we have. The second thing that's in addition to that, really supporting the teachers and using the technology that throughout the year is to hire that technology integration specialist. We've been asking for this for years. I'm really the one typically who's meeting with the teachers, or they have their teacher helpers in the buildings that try to support them as much as they can. Well, we definitely have the need, especially now that we've gone through this. The teachers have learned so much, have taught themselves so much in the past year. We want to basically stay on that moment, keep that momentum going with what they've learned, and have them develop new skills through the different platforms we're using, or even just a way of teaching. So we'll be looking for an experienced teacher. You're somebody who's been in the classroom, either coming out of the classroom or just recently left the classroom, who understands teaching and using the recent tech, who wants to stay abreast of the new technologies that are out there, and will be trusted with their peers. So again, that I know, as we talked about earlier, it could be a difficult position to hire for, but I do think we'll have someone out there that can come in and fill that role. And then the last thing in this, again, coming from the schools, they need ways of assessing, what are the learning gaps that were created for this time that the kids were out. So the proposal is for the middle and high school to purchase IXL, to also be available over the summer too, where there is content available for math, ELA, science, social studies, and Spanish, that the kids can go in. I don't know how many teachers are going to be signing up to be helping the kids throughout the year with the year they've had, but at least we'll have some resources for the kids that they can go out and do independent work, and also that program can assess where the kids are and hopefully fill some of those gaps. So those are the three things from tech. happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Mrs. Forbes and then Mr. Burke.
So, on your, where am I here? The IXL software?
Yeah.
It says you're buying one. One is a good enough license for everyone and everything that you have listed. Is that, cost for everything?
Yeah, it's for everything. Yeah, it's it's for the middle
like
and
a
high school.
bargain.
Yeah, just listed one because that's a quote that came in. It was, it's basically per student, but in the end, that's the cost. Yeah.
Okay, looked like a bargain to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Burke?
It's okay, my only concern is 175 laptops all bought the same year.
Yeah.
Who's at the other end of those laptops?
Yeah, great question. And I mentioned this to Dr. Nash too when we came in that, we'd still have to build in some sustainability in this. So, I'll probably be coming back to you saying that, let's put in maybe $20,000 each year. So we're not coming back in 5 years for $175,000 again when a grant's not available. So that we can basically be replacing those devices as they break throughout the year, and then we'll use the broken ones as parts to basically fix the others. So then we have a true replacement plan as we're doing right now with the Chromebooks. Yeah. Thank you.
Mrs. Griffin?
Do you have a thought of what type of laptop?
I'm working with a vendor right now. The big question is what's out there, right? So that's actually sooner the better right now because there is a chip shortage. We do have a lot of Dells in place, and we typically go with them because we've had Dells in the past, but also they're on state contracts, so it's easier to purchase from them. And we've had pretty good support with them. But I'm also working with another vendor, looking at different brands too. But the big thing we need that enterprise machine, rugged, where it'll move back and forth, and also comes with a dock. So your typical home devices don't have a docking station, so it's like a different tier that we'll be getting.
Any other questions? One couple quick questions and one quick comment. The technology integration specialist is so powerful. We were able to get one middle of the year this year. We wish we had him in the summer, but he's amazing, and that's a great position. So I hope you find somebody really good for that. The 175, does that account any of the new staff
Yes.
that we're hiring?
Yes,
Excellent.
we had to incorporate
Good.
that.
Yeah, that's
we
good.
did.
Yeah.
That's good. And I know, forgive me, I can't quite recall, where are we with the Chromebook? I know we had already built it into the budget, but is there anything that we should be doing with some of this money right now to kind of outfit our stockpile, so to speak?
Yeah,
Or
good
are
question.
we good with that?
Yeah, we're in great shape. So we just, Justin worked his magic and with some funds that were available at the end of the year. So we just got a shipment of 450 that just came in.
Right.
So now we have about 650 because we did have to put out, we had 300 in stock before. And then we had to put out about 50 just to fill in as we were talking about for testing. We had some devices that were out there that didn't meet the minimum requirements for MCAS testing, so we had to go through and replace those. So again, luckily we had those on hand to do that, and then we just had the extra 450, which again I wanted to get ahead of it before the mad rush over the summer with everyone else going for it. So we're in great shape. Thank you.
Right, and where are we at with the elementary level? Do we have enough carts for all teachers, or are we like
For Chromebooks
Yeah.
we have enough Chromebooks for every student.
at the elementary levels too?
K-12.
Awesome.
K through 12.
All
Excellent.
1-to-1.
Excellent, that's great.
Yeah, isn't it great?
That's awesome.
I know it.
All right,
Exciting.
Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Phillips?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you guys.
All right, Mr. Phillips, thank you. Dr. Nash? where are we
So
at?
that concludes our plan, and we would be looking this evening for a vote, because the sooner that we can get out to post positions, the better. Now, that's not to say that down the road, a few months from now, the incoming superintendent may come back to revisit, but as we said, this is a robust plan. It covers 2 years. Really, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of thought that went through this, and I think the sooner we can get out, we can see what's out there. And like any plan, it may have to be revisited, but we'd like to get a start on it as it is.
Yes, Mrs. Forbes.
I was going to make a motion if we're there yet.
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, so the motion, Dr. Nash, would be to approve every aspect of this plan.
Yes, as it is now.
As
As it is now.
submitted.
Is there
Right.
any way to build into the motion the ability to because the building leaders and the team might decide, well, we want to shift gears. Is there a way that we can put into the motion that they can come back for approval? But the problem is we have summer, right? So how does that happen over the summer? Just trying to think it out because, as this has been an ever-changing, year and a half, what if they decide over the summer, oh, we really want to go this direction? How do we make that work? I guess I'm asking
Why
you.
don't we just say that the motion could include something like with revisions as approved by the superintendent and business office, and then school committee could be notified,
Well,
and then questions or comments go back individually.
I don't think we want to have revisions happen without us deliberating and discussing on them if they're positions and they involve money. You know what I mean? Outside of us seeing it again. I don't necessarily, I think it could just happen that our superintendent will have to come back to us no matter what.
Right.
If they can't find people to fill the positions or if something happens.
Right,
So
I
I think
mean,
that would
there's a-
just be a natural
Right, I think there's
occurrence.
a
I
lot
don't think we
of,
need to
Just
make
trying to look and see what your July meeting date is. I think it
could just
will be
get
a
an update.
natural evolution. I think, within the next, month or so, I think people are gonna know
July
what they're able to
26th.
fill. So at your July 26th meeting,
We could
that's
revisit
probably,
changes.
I think you may end up coming back with some changes or modifications in the plan, given the fact that maybe the level of candidates out there, on what you need, you can't find people who fit the qualifications, so
Right.
could very well be that there would be a different iteration, but I think by the end of July, you should have a pretty good handle on positions that you can fill and not fill in the plan.
so the motion then being put forth would be to accept this proposal as stated with the confirmation of the plan at our July meeting, or any changes
Well, it would
brought
be
forth,
any
or
changes would be
changes
brought back
forth,
up
or
to
just
you,
like,
or
hey,
any-
we've hired
as a
everybody,
result.
we're all good to go.
Right.
be
Follow up
nice.
with the new superintendent, explaining to you any of the changes that may need to occur as a result.
But that doesn't really need to be a part of the motion. That would
No,
happen anyway.
no.
If it's part, if we have the meeting anyway, that
Right.
You have the
it's not a
meeting
July
anyway, you
meeting,
can just
so-
put it on
So
as a
my-
topic, and
Yeah,
they
so I
certainly
think the
will know.
motion-
So
I
I'd
think
like to
just
make
a
a
minute,
motion to accept the district learning recovery and acceleration plan proposal as stated.
Excuse you.
He seconds my motion.
Yes, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further
Topic.
discussion on the topic? Seeing and hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Ms. Cook? Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, 5 yes.
Thank you. Now the hiring, the hard work really
Work
begins. And I'm sure Mr. Lucas and the administrative team will keep you informed as to the progress.
All right, moving on. Before we take a vote, you still are our authorized signer, Mrs. Griffin, so do you have a report for us?
I do, let me find it. The back of this packet, bear with me.
Here.
I got it. I'm slow, but I'm getting there. All right.
One-handed.
Yep. So I have a warrant report for June 14th, 2021. So I signed a payroll warrant on May 27th, 2021 for $632,013.96. An accounts payable warrant for June 2nd, 2021 for $111,648.18. An accounts payable warrant dated June 8th, 2021 for $127,494.13. A payroll warrant for June 10th, 2021 for $2,731,739.26. And an accounts payable warrant dated June 15th, 2021 for $81,184.91. And that is all.
Thank you, Mrs. Griffin. And we do not need a vote on that, correct? No? Okay. So review of the subcommittees and assignments 21, 22. We do need to take votes on these, so I could just say that I have been on 2 committees, but as the chair, I've been informed, thank you, Helen, that I am a standing member on all the committees. So what I would certainly offer is, I mean, I think we need to get 2 members on each committee. And then for any reason, if any member can't make a meeting, if you just let me know, I definitely will pinch hit. Because we can't have more than 2, right, at a meeting, because that becomes that presents a quorum.
Right.
So obviously, we really look forward to the reports at our meetings, but if, you know, I would hope that we all could kind of nominate ourselves or volunteer for at least 2 committees to fill these up. And then I certainly will pinch hit anytime you can't make a committee. So just we also need chairs, right, in the subcommittee, so I'll just go over quick. The expectations of the subcommittee chair: schedule meetings during the course of the school year between September and June, works with the executive assistant to post agendas for all meetings in accordance with the open meeting law, ensure minutes are recorded for all subcommittee meetings, minutes should be forwarded to the executive assistant for filing with the town clerk's office, reports at each school committee meeting on the subcommittee's work, and ensures the full school committee is aware of the next scheduled subcommittee meetings. So we have policy, we have personnel and negotiations, school buildings and safety, district accountability and curriculum, and diversity, equity, and anti-racism. So we have 5 subcommittees. 4 of you. If we do 2 times 4, that does not get us 2 on each, but I guess I'm opening the floor to the members for a discussion, or Dr. Nash, if you have a
Just a comment, yes, on the Personnel Negotiations Subcommittee. That committee is going to be very robust this year in meeting because the OEA contract is up. So you want to make sure if you volunteer for that committee, you have the ability to commit quite a few meetings.
So I guess I'm looking for advice through you, Dr. Nash. Should I, as the chair, be on a couple of committees to help balance the numbers? If we have,
Yeah, unless there's no reason why you
was he on?
cannot be.
Okay,
There's
then I'll
no,
definitely be
yeah.
on committees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Can I volunteer?
yes, September, go ahead.
So I would love to stay on the Personnel and Negotiations Committee, which I'm
Bless you.
currently on. And I am also on the School Building and Safety Committee currently. I don't know what we've got going on with that. If there's not much going on, I wouldn't mind going on to the Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism. So I would offer myself for 2 out of those 3.
Okay. I do want to pay really close attention to the personnel and negotiations. I really want, it's highlighted bullet 2, establish calendar for and facilitates the process of annual evaluation of the district superintendent. I really want to have a really concise plan on how, you know, meeting with the goals. And so I think, I know I was a member of this committee and I didn't even realize part of our job.
I think it's highlighted because we've added that in.
Right, because it was something I kind of wanted to explore, creating our own a subcommittee regarding the evaluation, but Helen pointed out to me that it's already part of that group, so September's on that group. If anybody else wants to be part of the negotiation or the evaluation, there's gonna be a lot of work involved in that committee. Is anybody else interested in
Are you
working
saying
with
that
them?
you are interested?
No, I'm asking if anybody else is interested in doing that. Are you asking me if you want?
No,
Saying it should be.
I'll tell you, like September, I would be willing to do personnel negotiations, school building and safety, and stay with the district accountability. So 2 of those 3 I would be happy to do, so.
Okay, do you have any preferences, Pal?
Policy, I kind of like to stick on that. And I do appreciate the district accountability and curriculum, and I know that I put, you know, forth the diversity, equity, and anti-racism committee, but I totally dropped the ball on getting that going this year, so.
COVID.
I know COVID, but still, like,
So you're
I
saying
still feel like that's
policy,
not an excuse, and I owe everybody an apology.
policy and diversity, equity and anti-racism, are you interested in
Yeah,
those
or
2?
curriculum. I mean, I'll be honest, I appreciate curriculum too, and I wanna be in many places, but I know my limitations.
Curriculum.
Molly, do you have a preference on what committees you'd like to be on?
I want the school building and safety one.
Okay,
Just throwing it out there, I think you'd be great on the Diversity and Equity.
anything else?
Just because you're bringing, I don't know yet, but I think because you bring that younger.
Yeah, the diversity, equity, and
Okay.
racism one as well.
Thank you
So September, or Pal, do you want to be on the diversity, equity, and anti-racism? Do either of you have a strong preference? Because I could put one of you there.
So I have to say, I love Pal on curriculum, and
Yeah.
I don't feel strong in that. So if I could request,
So if you want, if you
I
want,
would do the diversity.
okay, great.
Yep.
All right, Pal, I can
Thank
join
you.
you on, I can stay with you on policy. And Corey, you said you wanted to stay with curriculum too, potentially. So if
Yeah.
you want to do personnel negotiations, stay with curriculum. And I can do school building and safety with Molly. We do need subcommittee chairs. So I can just tell you what we got right now. In the policy committee, it's Pal and myself. Do you want to remain the chair?
Sure. God knows I passed the torch enough to you, though, that you could be chair this year.
Personnel and negotiations, September and Corey. Do either of you have a preference to be the chair?
Doesn't matter to me. Depends if I end up the chair down below.
What are we doing down below? Let's find out.
Okay, so
Right.
you'll be the chair down below. So do you want to be the chair in personnel negotiations?
Sure.
Good.
And then I'll be the chair. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And then I'm at school building and safety. I guess I can chair that. Unless you want to chair it, Molly? All right. We'll get your feet wet, and then
Right.
you can take
Baby
over that chair.
steps.
And then the district accountability and curriculum, Pal and Corey, each of you are already a chair. Do you want to?
Do you want to be co-chairs?
Co-chair
There
that.
you
Yeah,
go.
okay. You co-chair that
Co-chair.
one last time?
I feel like, yeah, that's kind of how I roll anyways.
So co-chairs.
Teamwork.
Okay,
I
so
probably
do
most of the
these
work for
assignments
anybody else.
need a vote?
No.
Yes.
Do they?
Yeah.
All right.
Who was the chair of the diversity, equity?
Me.
September.
Yeah.
All right, so I can make a motion, correct? So I'll make a motion for our standing subcommittees. For the policy subcommittee, Pal will be the chair, I will be a member. For the personnel and negotiations, Corey will be the chair, September will be a member. For school buildings and safety, I will be the chair, Molly will be a member. District accountability and curriculum, Pal and Corey are both co-chairs. In diversity, equity, and anti-racism, September's the chair and Molly is a member.
Thank
So
you.
motion on the floor.
I'll second your motion.
Second, any discussion on the appointments of the subcommittees? Seeing and hearing none, call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yeah.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Subcommittees are in place. Thank you in advance for all your work on that. And now we just have to get members out there. So we also need to appoint a 2021-2022 authorized signer. Do we have any nominations?
I'll nominate Pal.
I'll second that nomination.
That was the fastest.
Oh,
Any discussion?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing and hearing none, call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Oh, you didn't abstain.
Oh, I should have said.
No, you said yes.
Too late.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, 5 affirmatives.
Happy to help.
And member comments and requests. So we'll start with you, Ms. Cook, down the end. Any comments or requests?
No.
No comments or requests. All right. Mrs. Forbes.
All right, so I wanted just to say another thank you to all of the retirees who have retired already and who will be retiring at the end of the year. Some of your careers, I can't even imagine having done that many years, but more power to you and good luck in your futures. Also, good luck to our baseball team tomorrow. They've been playing really well and it's been an exciting season for them. And then I just wanted to say that because I was going to be away for the high school graduation, I made it a point to get to a lot of the events that the seniors had. The sports award, the NJROTC awards, the senior scholarships were wonderful to attend. Seeing some of our best and brightest students and finding out what these kids are doing in their futures was really exciting for me. And the visual night of the arts that was sent to us via email was also great. I truly miss it in person, and I'm looking forward to being able to actually see all of that great art. But thank you for that link, and to the staff who put that all together. It was really appreciated.
Oh,
By
Padre.
him as well.
Padre.
Anything else, Mrs. Forbes?
I'm all set, I'm sorry.
So you are
Thank you.
exemplar every time. You do an amazing job. Thank you.
does.
Mrs. Griffin.
Just thank you to everybody for their awesome work to give us this district learning recovery and acceleration plan, and I'm super excited about it, and I'm happy to have an awesome committee to work with again, and I think we have a very bright future, so that's pretty much it. And I think our next policy subcommittee meeting is June 24th. Is that? Yeah, Thursday.
Next Thursday.
I'm surprised my brain's working. And I know that we're looking for people to still join the subcommittees. So this is the time that, if any parent or, constituent is interested out there to step up and serve with us on these committees, it would be greatly appreciated. We need new people. We need, fresh ideas and wisdom. So I think that there'll be a notice probably on our district website. It's probably already there.
And we've
Already,
had great feedback, so at the
There you
next
go.
meeting, we'll have a list of candidates for you.
Oh,
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you, Helen, for doing all that, getting the word out there, and for everybody that's already spoken up and said that they want to join.
Thank you very
That's
much.
all.
Thank you, Helen, for that. Thank you, pal. Is that it?
That's it.
All right, Mr. Burke.
I don't want to be too repetitive.
Okay.
The plan is outstanding. You guys did a great job. Like Mr. P said, the pressure's on now, right? Mm-hmm. Make it work, but I trust you will. So, that's all.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Burke. Just a couple quick things. At the beginning of the meeting, I noted that this will be the last remote meeting until further notice. So at midnight tomorrow, the state of emergency is supposed to expire. So at this point, as a board, as the Oxford School Committee, we will hold in-person meetings only moving forward. So our next scheduled meeting, which is 2 weeks from tonight, will be in-person only. With the exception, there will be a live stream Facebook option or the video recording that you can catch on the Town of Oxford's YouTube channel. I think I captured all that correctly, right? All right, thank you. Public comment, just something I wanted to throw out there. I look at public comment, and we haven't even done it yet. It's coming next. And I'm just wondering, as a board, do we want to move public comment up so that people do have the ability to speak to anything that's on the agenda? At this point, votes have been taken and things have been done potentially, and maybe they're, we're starving for public comment. We want feedback and input, but I think maybe we as a board should consider changing the part of public comment on our agenda. It just allows people the voice before.
So you're suggesting move that to the top of the agenda? if
Somewhere at the
there's a
top of the
comment,
agenda before we start.
They want
getting-
us to hear something before we
Exactly,
talk
they have the
about
ability
it.
to talk about anything, because they can really only speak to what's on the agenda.
Right.
And, by the time it gets to them,
They're gone.
it's.
The vote's taken, so that
Right.
often has been the
True.
case
Right.
in agendas that I've seen, it's at the beginning.
Okay.
So is that something that we can just change, Helen?
You as the
As
chair
the chair can change that?
set
Oh,
the agenda with
Okay.
the
There you
members.
go.
all right, that was easy.
That was
Graduation, great job to Mr. Nugent, Mr. Truax. It was really, I was trying to visualize how it's gonna all look under the tent, but they did an amazing job. I mean, really, really special night. It was really, really well done. And for me personally, as a former educator in the district, that this graduating class was the first 8th grade class down here, so they were a class that I had the privilege of working with at the middle school. So it was really, really cool to be there, and you guys did a great job. So excellent job there. And just finally, this will be our last meeting before the school year gets out, because you guys are out Thursday, right? So I just want to say a special thanks and kudos to all the stakeholders in the Oxford public school community. From our community, from our families, our parents and guardians, our staff and our students. This has been a year unlike any other, as you all know, and the effort and the work put in has been amazing. And I can't tip my hat to all of you enough. I know sometimes, again, I just want to stress this with our administrative team. I know sometimes there's questions and we go back and forth, but we're all on the same team. A lot of us wear the same hats you guys do and you ladies do. So we're here to work together, and I hope this partnership continues. I'm super excited to have Mr. Mike Lucas join us in a couple of weeks. Him and I have had some conversations within our negotiation, and I'm really glad that we got him inked and signed, so to speak, and really looking forward to his leadership, his expertise, and really to see where he can help support taking our district to that next level. And super excited about that. So thank you all. That is it for me. So without further ado, I will open the floor up for public comment. And seeing if we have anybody. And we do not, so we will close the floor for public comment. Any future business from the committee members, if you can send me an email if you'd like to get something on the agenda. I know there was a couple of requests last time. September was requesting to visit the elementary schools. Did you hear back or get anything?
I went on vacation actually, so I wasn't able to do
So
that.
that's
but
superseded. So
You can tell Thursday.
I know I have till Thursday and I'm working all week, so
Okay.
not gonna get
so
my
next
wish
year, then,
sadly.
so that's
Next year,
good.
I'll be there, I promise.
And then there was a request for food service. Was that through you, pal?
Oh,
Yes, probably.
No, that was through me.
I think we both kind of have
Yeah.
the same feelings.
Is any
There was
update
a
next
follow-up
week?
conversation, so I know
Okay.
things are in the works.
All right, so you feel
Yep.
pretty good with that? Okay, so no future requests at this point. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Seeing and hear none, call for the vote. Ms. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Forbes?
Yes.
Mrs. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. We are adjourned. Have a great night, everybody, and have a safe summer.